When the most dangerous man in the city stops his car in the pouring rain to save you, you have two choices: die on the street or step into his world. Kaelyn Pierce chooses to live, and that choice will transform her into someone she never thought she could be. This is a story of salvation, betrayal, and love born from the ashes. Watch until the end, and comment with the name of the city you're watching in so I know how far this story has come. Now, let me tell you what happened on that night in Chicago that changed everything. The rain came down like fists against Chicago concrete, turning the back streets into rivers of oil and filth. Kaelyn Pierce pressed her back against the wet brick wall of the alley, tasting copper in her mouth where her lip had split open. Her ribs screamed with every breath. The torn fabric of her waitress uniform clung to her skin, soaked through with rain and sweat, and the particular kind of terror that came from knowing you were about to die. Trent Holloway stood 6 feet away, blocking the alley's only exit. His boots splashed through the puddles as he moved closer, slow and deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. Maybe he did. The knife in his right hand caught the dim light from the street beyond, blade slick with rain. 3 months, Trent said, his voice carrying that casual tone that always came before violence. 3 fucking months you made me look for you. Kaelyn's fingers scraped against the brick behind her, searching for something, anything. A pipe, a broken bottle. Nothing, just wet stone and the smell of garbage rotting in the dumpster to her left. The restraining order, she started, is toilet paper. Trent laughed, the sound wet and ugly. You really thought a piece of paper would stop me? You really thought hiding in this shithole city would save you? He was close enough now that she could see the spiderweb tattoo on his neck, the one he'd gotten in county lockup 2 years ago. Close enough to smell the whiskey on his breath and the rage underneath it. Kaelyn's phone was somewhere in the puddle near her feet, screen shattered from when he'd knocked it out of her hand. Her apartment was 4 blocks away. Noah was there. 7 years old, silent for nearly a year now, waiting for his aunt to come home from her shift at the diner. Waiting for the only family he had left after Kaelyn's sister overdosed in a motel bathroom. The boy couldn't lose her too. Trent, please, His fist caught her jaw before she finished speaking. Her head snapped back against the brick, and the world turned white for a second, pain exploding behind her eyes. She felt herself sliding down the wall, her legs giving out. You know what I missed most? Trent crouched down in front of her, grabbing a handful of her wet hair and yanking her head up. The knife pressed cold against her throat. The way you'd flinch when I walked in a room, the way you'd apologize for shit that wasn't even your fault, that's what love looks like, Kaelyn. That's what you threw away. She couldn't speak, could barely breathe. The blade was too close to her windpipe. And that little bastard kid you're hiding, Trent continued, his voice dropping to something worse than a shout, something quiet and certain. I'm going to take him apart piece by piece. Make sure you watch every second of it before I finish you too. That was when the headlights cut through the rain. A black sedan rolled into the alley's mouth, sleek and silent as a shark. The kind of car that didn't belong in this part of the city. The kind of car that cost more than Kaelyn had made in her entire life. Trent turned, squinting against the high beams. The fuck? The engine died. A door opened, and a man stepped out into the rain like he owned the storm itself. He wore a black suit that probably cost $5,000, perfectly tailored, completely unbothered by the weather. Dark hair swept back, clean-shaven jaw, eyes that caught the light and gave nothing back. He looked at the scene in front of him, Kaelyn bleeding against the wall, Trent holding a knife, and his expression didn't change at all. This is private business, Trent said, standing up but keeping the knife pointed at Kaelyn. Turn around and drive the fuck off. The man in the suit studied Trent for exactly 3 seconds. Then he spoke, his voice quiet and precise, with an accent Kaelyn couldn't place. European, maybe. Old money. Let her go. Trent laughed. Actually laughed. Or what? Or I kill you here. The man said it like he was ordering coffee. No heat, no anger. Just a simple statement of fact. That should have been funny. One unarmed man in a designer suit against Trent Holloway, who'd put 3 men in the hospital last year and walked away without a scratch. But Trent's laugh died in his throat. Maybe it was the way the man stood, perfectly still, weight-balanced, hands loose at his sides like a fighter who'd forgotten more about violence than Trent would ever learn. Maybe it was the way the car's back door opened and two more men stepped out, both wearing dark suits, both moving with the kind of synchronized precision that came from military training, or something worse. Maybe it was the look in the man's eyes. Cold, patient, already decided. Trent took a step back, knife still raised. "You don't know who you're fucking with." "Dante Moreau." The man, Dante, tilted his head slightly. "And you have 5 seconds to drop the weapon and walk away. 4, 3. Fuck you." Dante moved. Kaelyn barely saw it happen. 1 second Dante was 10 feet away. The next second he was on Trent, moving with impossible speed. His hand caught Trent's wrist mid-swing, twisted hard. Bone cracked like a gunshot. The knife clattered to the pavement. Trent screamed. Dante drove his knee into Trent's stomach, folding him in half, then an elbow to the back of his skull. Trent went down face first into a puddle, choking on rainwater and blood. The whole thing took maybe 4 seconds. The two men in suits moved forward without being asked, hauling Trent up by his arms. He was still conscious, barely, making wet gasping sounds. One of the men looked at Dante, waiting for orders. Dante brushed rain off his sleeve, his suit somehow still immaculate despite the violence. He glanced at Kaelyn, then back at Trent. "This man threatened you?" Dante asked her. Kaelyn couldn't speak, could only nod, her hand pressed against her bleeding mouth. "And the child he mentioned, yours?" "My nephew." Her voice came out broken. "Noah, he's 7, Trent used to—" She couldn't finish, couldn't make the words come. Dante's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Something ancient and cold. He looked at the men holding Trent. "Lake Michigan. Deep water. Make sure he doesn't surface." Kaelyn's stomach dropped. "Wait." But Trent was already being dragged toward a second car that had appeared at the alley's entrance, a black SUV with tinted windows. She watched them throw him in the back, watched the door slam shut, watched the vehicle disappear into the rainy night. Just like that. Gone. The rain kept falling. Somewhere a siren wailed, blocks away. Kaelyn slid further down the wall, her legs finally giving out completely. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Dante crouched in front of her the same way Trent had moments ago, but his hands stayed at his sides. He didn't touch her. "You're bleeding," he said quietly. "You killed him." The words came out flat. Shock, probably. Her brain couldn't process what had just happened. Yes. No denial. No justification. Just the simple truth. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Someone who doesn't like watching women get hurt in alleys." Dante reached into his jacket and pulled out a handkerchief, an actual cloth handkerchief, monogrammed. He held it out to her. "For your mouth." She took it with trembling fingers, pressed it against her split lip. The fabric was expensive. Silk, maybe. It would be ruined. "You need a hospital," Dante said. "I need to get home." Kaelyn tried to stand, made it halfway before her ribs screamed and she gasped, nearly falling. Dante caught her elbow, steadying her. His grip was firm but careful, like he knew exactly how much pressure to use. "Where is home?" 4 blocks north, the Riverside Apartments. "I can walk." "No." He guided her toward the sedan, one hand hovering near her back without quite touching. "You can't." The car's back door was already open. Warm leather seats, soft lighting, the smell of expensive cologne and something else. Gun oil, maybe. The interior was pristine. Kaelyn hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to run. This man had just ordered a murder like he was sending back a steak at a restaurant. She'd watched him break Trent's arm without breaking a sweat. She should be terrified. But Trent was gone. Permanently. After months of running, months of looking over her shoulder, months of changing her phone number and her work schedule and sleeping with a knife under her pillow, it was over. And this stranger with the cold eyes and the expensive suit had made it happen in 4 seconds. She got in the car. Dante slid in beside her, maintaining a careful distance. The door closed with a solid thunk that spoke of bulletproof glass and reinforced panels. The driver pulled out of the alley, smooth as silk, and the rain-soaked streets began sliding past the windows. Neither of them spoke for a full minute. "Noah," Dante said finally. "That's your nephew?" "Yes." "His parents?" Dead. My sister. Kaelyn's voice caught. Overdose. 6 months ago. I'm all he has. Dante nodded slowly, like this confirmed something he'd suspected. And Trent Holloway was what? Ex-boyfriend? Husband? Ex. We were together for 2 years before I got smart enough to leave. He put me in the hospital twice. The second time I pressed charges. He did 6 months, got out in January and started hunting me. The restraining order didn't work. Nothing worked. Kaelyn laughed, the sound bitter and broken. 3 different police reports. Changed apartments twice. He always found me. And tonight he said... She stopped, the handkerchief pressed against her trembling mouth. He said he'd hurt Noah, that he'd make me watch. He won't hurt anyone again, Dante said quietly. The certainty in his voice should have been terrifying. Instead, for the first time in months, Kaelyn felt something loosen in her chest, something that had been wound tight and screaming since the day she'd found her sister's body. Who are you really? She asked. You don't just have men in suits waiting in cars. You don't just make people disappear. Dante looked at her for a long moment. In the dim light of the sedan's interior, his face was all sharp angles and shadows, handsome in a way that felt dangerous, like a blade wrapped in velvet. I'm someone who solves problems, he said finally, usually for people who can afford my services. Tonight I was driving through because I own a property nearby. I saw what was happening and I stopped. You stopped to help a random stranger? I stopped because men who threaten children don't deserve to breathe. There was something in his voice now, something underneath the careful control. Old pain, maybe. Old rage. And because no one should die in an alley begging for mercy. The car turned onto a residential street, rows of old apartment buildings with fire escapes zigzagging down their faces. Kaelyn recognized the route. They were heading toward Riverside. This is me, she said, pointing to a building with peeling paint and a broken front window covered in plywood. 3rd floor. The driver pulled to the curb. Rain hammered the roof. Dante didn't move. You can't stay here. Excuse me? Trent Holloway didn't find you by accident tonight. Someone told him where you lived. Someone knows about this building, about your work schedule, about the boy upstairs. Dante's voice was patient, like he was explaining something obvious. And Trent has friends, family, people who will ask questions when he doesn't come home. Ice spread through Kaelyn's stomach. His brother, Jesus, his brother Marcus. Exactly. But I don't have anywhere else. She stopped, reality crashing down. She made $8 an hour plus tips. She had maybe $400 in savings. No car. No family except Noah. I can't afford to run again. I'm not asking you to run. Dante reached into his jacket again, pulled out a business card. Heavy cardstock, embossed letters. Just a phone number, no name. I'm asking you to let me help. Why? Kaelyn stared at him. Why would you help me? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Because I can. Simple as that. And because that boy upstairs has already lost his mother. He doesn't deserve to lose his aunt, too. The words hit something deep in Kaelyn's chest. Something she'd been trying to ignore for months. The crushing weight of being Noah's only protection, his only family, his only chance at a normal life. And failing at it. Failing so badly she was getting beaten in alleys while he waited at home. What kind of help? She asked quietly. The permanent kind. Dante held her gaze. Somewhere safe. Somewhere Trent's brother and his friends will never find you. Somewhere you can stop looking over your shoulder. Nothing's permanent. With me, it is. The certainty again. That absolute confidence. Kaelyn had met plenty of men who thought they were tough, thought they ran the world. Trent had been one of them. But Dante Moreau was different. He didn't need to posture or threaten or raise his voice. He simply stated facts, and the universe rearranged itself accordingly. She should say no. Should thank him for saving her life, take Noah, and disappear into the night, find another city, another job, another shitty apartment. But she was so tired, tired of running, tired of being afraid, tired of working doubles at the diner and coming home to find Noah sitting in the dark, not speaking, not crying, just staring at nothing with those huge, traumatized eyes. If I say yes, Kaelyn said slowly, what does that mean? What do you get out of this? Nothing. Dante's expression didn't change. I don't want anything from you. Everyone wants something. Then consider it an investment in making sure one less piece of shit walks the earth. He opened the car door, cold rain rushing in. But you need to decide now. Every minute we sit here is a minute Trent's people have to mobilize. Kaelyn looked up at her apartment building. Third floor, second window from the left. The light was on. Noah was up there, probably sitting at the kitchen table with his coloring books, waiting for her. 7 years old, and he hadn't spoken a word since the day they told him his mother was dead. If Marcus Holloway came looking for revenge, that light would go out. Noah would go into the system. Some foster home where nobody knew his story, or his silence, or how he needed his blankets arranged just so, or he couldn't sleep. Or worse. She looked back at Dante Moreau, the stranger in an expensive suit who'd killed for her without hesitation, who was offering her safety with the same casual certainty he'd offered Trent a death sentence. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." Dante nodded once, like he'd expected nothing less. He spoke to the driver without looking away from her. "Wait here. Keep the engine running." Then he stepped out into the rain and held out his hand. Kaelyn took it. They went upstairs together, Dante moving with silent efficiency, his eyes cataloging everything. The broken mailboxes in the lobby, the graffiti on the walls, the junkie passed out on the second-floor landing. He didn't comment, just positioned himself slightly in front of Kaelyn as they climbed, like a shield she hadn't asked for. At her apartment door, Kaelyn fumbled with her keys. Her hands were still shaking. "Let me," Dante said quietly, and took them from her. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Noah was exactly where she'd pictured him, at the kitchen table, crayons spread across the scarred surface, working on a drawing. He looked up when they entered, his dark eyes going wide when he saw Kaelyn's face, the blood, the torn clothes. He didn't make a sound, just stared. "Hey, baby." Kaelyn forced her voice steady, forced a smile. "It's okay. I'm okay." Noah's gaze shifted to Dante and something happened. The boy went very still, like a rabbit sensing a predator. But he didn't look away. There was something else in his eyes. Curiosity, maybe. Recognition of something familiar. Dante crouched down slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. He didn't smile or try to speak to Noah. Just met the boy's eyes with the same serious respect he'd given adult. "We need to pack," Kaelyn said. "Just the important stuff. Can you grab your backpack?" Noah didn't move. "Please, baby. We have to go somewhere safe for a while." Still nothing. Dante spoke, his voice low and calm. "There are people who might come here looking for your aunt. Bad people. We need to make sure they don't find you." Noah blinked. Then slowly, he slid off his chair and disappeared into the bedroom. "He doesn't talk," Kaelyn said quietly. "I noticed. Since his mom died, the therapist said it's trauma, selective mutism, that he'll speak again when he feels safe. Then we make him feel safe." Dante straightened, already surveying the apartment. "How much time do you need?" 10 minutes, maybe less. We don't have much." She wasn't kidding. The apartment was barely furnished. A thrift store couch, a table with mismatched chairs, 2 mattresses in the bedroom. Everything they owned fit in 3 garbage bags and Noah's backpack. Dante helped in silence, his expensive suit completely out of place in the shabby rooms. He didn't comment on the water stains on the ceiling or the cockroaches skittering away when Kaelyn opened the closet, just methodically packed clothes and toiletries while she gathered Noah's drawings and the battered teddy bear he slept with. 8 minutes later, they were done. Noah stood by the door with his backpack, watching Dante with those huge, solemn eyes. Kaelyn knelt beside him, brushing hair off his forehead. "We're going somewhere new," she said, "somewhere nice. And this man, Mr. Moreau, he's going to keep us safe. Is that okay?" Noah looked at Dante, then very slowly he nodded. Something in Kaelyn's chest cracked. Trust. The boy was choosing to trust. God, she hoped that wasn't a mistake. They went back down to the car, Dante carrying the bags like they weighed nothing. The driver, a stone-faced man with a scar across his temple, had the trunk open and ready. Everything went in. Noah climbed into the back seat without being asked, buckling himself carefully. Kaelyn took one last look at the building, at the broken window and the peeling paint and the life she'd been barely surviving in for 3 months. Then she got in beside Noah and closed the door. The car pulled away from the curb, tires hissing on wet pavement. The city slid past the windows, streetlights and shadows, and people hurrying through the rain with their heads down. Chicago at 2 in the morning, cold and indifferent to the small dramas playing out in its alleys. "Where are we going?" Kaelyn asked. Dante was typing something on his phone, messages flying with military efficiency. "My estate, 40 minutes outside the city. Estate. You'll be safe there." Noah had pressed his face against the window, watching the city give way to suburbs, then to darkened highway. Kaelyn put her arm around him, pulling him close. He leaned into her, small and warm and silent. Questions piled up in her throat. What kind of man had an estate? What kind of man could order a murder and 30 seconds later help a 7-year-old pack his stuffed animals? What had she just agreed to? But exhaustion was crashing over her now, adrenaline draining away and leaving nothing but bone-deep weariness. Her ribs ached. Her face throbbed. And for the first time in months, someone else was making the decisions. Someone else was handling the danger. She let her eyes close. When she opened them again, the car was slowing. They'd left the highway behind, following a private road that wound through dense woods. Rain still fell, but softer now, more like mist. Then the trees opened up and Kaelyn's breath caught. The estate rose out of the darkness like something from another world. Not a mansion, a compound. Stone walls 10 feet high surrounding manicured grounds. Guard towers at the corners, subtle but unmistakable. And at the center, a sprawling house that mixed old European architecture with modern security. Narrow windows, reinforced doors, cameras tracking their approach. "Jesus Christ," Kaelyn whispered. "Welcome home," Dante said quietly. The gates opened before they reached them, smooth and silent. Security lights flickered on, illuminating a circular drive with a fountain at its center. Even in the rain, the place looked like something out of a magazine. Old money, power, control. The car stopped. Dante got out first, then opened Kaelyn's door and offered his hand. She took it, her legs unsteady as she stepped out. Noah followed, clutching his backpack, staring up at the massive house with wide eyes. The front door opened and a woman appeared, late 50s, gray hair pulled back severely, wearing a housekeeper's uniform. She looked at Dante with the kind of respect that came from years of service. "Mr. Moreau," she said, "your rooms are ready." "Thank you, Elena." Dante gestured for Kaelyn and Noah to follow. "This is Miss Pierce and her nephew Noah. They'll be staying with us." Elena's expression didn't flicker. She'd probably seen stranger things. "Of course. I've prepared the east wing, separate bedrooms, shared sitting room. Will they need anything else tonight?" "Food, warm clothes, first aid kit." Dante glanced at Kaelyn. "And perhaps some tea?" "Right away, sir." They stepped into a foyer that belonged in a museum. Marble floors. A chandelier that probably cost more than Kaelyn's entire life. Dark wood paneling and oil paintings of landscapes she didn't recognize. The air smelled like lemon polish and old books. Noah pressed closer to Kaelyn's side. "It's a lot," Dante said, noticing. "You'll get used to it." "I don't think I will," Kaelyn said honestly. "Then don't. But you'll be safe here." He started down a hallway, and they followed, footsteps echoing on the polished floors. "There are guards on the perimeter 24 hours a day. The walls are 15 feet high and topped with sensors. No one gets in without clearance, and no one—" He stopped, turned to face her. "No one will hurt you or your nephew here. I promise you that." "Why?" The question burst out before Kaelyn could stop it. "Why are you doing this? You could have just driven past that alley. You could have let me handle it myself. Why stop? Why bring us here?" Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, very softly, "Because 8 years ago, I didn't stop. I drove past, and the woman in that alley died." The words hung in the air like ghosts. "Who was she?" Kaelyn whispered. "Someone who needed help. Someone I told myself wasn't my problem." Dante's face was carved from stone, expressionless, but his eyes, for just a second, showed something raw and terrible. "I found out 3 days later she'd bled out alone in the rain. No one came. No one cared. And I—" He stopped, breathed. "I carry that every day. So when I saw you tonight, I stopped." Kaelyn didn't know what to say. This man who ordered murders and lived in a fortress and moved through the world like a blade. He'd saved her because of guilt. Because 8 years ago, he'd failed someone else. "Thank you," she said quietly. Dante nodded once, then continued walking. The east wing was its own small apartment, 2 bedrooms connected by a sitting room with a fireplace and tall windows overlooking the grounds. The furniture was expensive but comfortable, the kind that invited you to sink in and disappear. One bedroom had a queen bed with soft pillows and thick blankets. The other was clearly meant for Noah. There was already a collection of books on the shelf, toys in a chest, even a small desk by the window. Elena prepared this while we were driving, Dante explained. If you need anything changed. It's perfect, Kaelyn's voice cracked. The room was bigger than their entire apartment had been. Cleaner, safer. Thank you. Noah had drifted to the toy chest, pulling out a wooden train set with careful hands. He sat cross-legged on the carpet and began arranging the pieces, lost in his own silent world. I'll leave you to rest, Dante said. Elena will bring food shortly. Tomorrow we'll discuss the details. But tonight, he looked at Kaelyn with something that might have been gentleness. Tonight, just sleep. You're safe. He turned to leave. Dante. He stopped at the door. What happens if Trent's brother comes looking? Kaelyn asked. If he figures out you were involved? Dante glanced back over his shoulder, and for just a moment the careful mask slipped. What looked back at her was something cold and ancient and absolutely certain. Then I'll kill him too, he said simply. Sleep well, Kaelyn. The door closed with a soft click. Kaelyn stood in the center of the beautiful room, rain pattering against the windows, Noah playing quietly on the floor. She was in a stranger's house, a stranger who killed people, a stranger who'd promised her safety and delivered her into a world she didn't understand. She should be terrified. Instead, for the first time in 6 months, she felt something like hope stirring in her chest. And that, more than anything, scared her most of all. Ticks. She didn't sleep, not really. Elena brought food, soup, and bread and tea that actually tasted expensive, and clean clothes that fit perfectly somehow. Kaelyn got Noah cleaned up and fed and tucked into the enormous bed in his new room. He was asleep in minutes, exhausted, clutching his teddy bear. Kaelyn sat in the chair beside his bed and watched him breathe. In the soft lamplight, he looked younger than 7. Vulnerable. Every protective instinct in her body screamed that she'd made a terrible mistake, that she should grab him and run before whatever deal she'd made with Dante Moreau came due. But where would she run to? Marcus Holloway was out there somewhere. And Marcus made Trent look like a playground bully. He'd done real time. 5 years in Stateville for aggravated assault. He had connections, friends in low places. If he decided to hunt her down for revenge, a restraining order wouldn't even slow him down. At least here, there were walls. Guards. A man who'd proven he was willing to kill to keep her safe. She touched Noah's forehead gently, then stood and moved to the sitting room. The fire in the fireplace had died down to embers. Outside the windows, the rain had stopped and moonlight filtered through broken clouds, illuminating the grounds. She could see the walls in the distance, dark and solid. Could see the subtle shadows of guards moving on patrol. A prison or a fortress. Depended on how you looked at it. Footsteps in the hallway made her turn, but the door didn't open. Instead, she heard voices, low, controlled, speaking in a language she didn't recognize. Not Spanish. Italian, maybe? The conversation was brief, clipped, professional. Then silence. Kaelyn pressed her ear against the door, heart suddenly hammering. What was she doing here? Who was Dante Moreau really? She'd Googled the name while Noah was eating, sitting on the toilet with her phone because paranoia died hard, but found nothing. No social media, no business listings. Just a few vague mentions in old Chicago Tribune articles about organized crime investigations that went nowhere. Organized crime. Jesus. The doorknob turned and Kaelyn jumped back, nearly tripping over the coffee table. But it was just Elena, carrying fresh towels. The older woman's expression didn't change when she saw Kaelyn standing there like a spooked cat. I didn't mean to startle you, Elena said calmly. I brought extra linens. The nights get cold. Thank you. Kaelyn's voice came out too high. Elena, can I ask you something? Of course. How long have you worked here? 12 years. And Mr. Moreau, Kaelyn hesitated. What exactly does he do? Elena set the towels on the arm of the couch, her movements precise and unhurried. Mr. Moreau solves problems for people who have nowhere else to turn. He provides security, protection, justice when the law fails. That's a very polite way of saying he's a criminal. That depends on your definition of criminal. Elena met her eyes without flinching. The law says many things are crimes. Protecting your family, feeding your children when the system fails you, fighting back against men who hurt women. She paused. Killing monsters who threaten children. Kaelyn's throat tightened. You know what happened tonight. I know Mr. Moreau doesn't bring people here unless they have nowhere else to go. I know he doesn't kill unless someone deserves it. And I know, Elena's voice softened slightly, that in 12 years, I've never seen him hurt anyone who didn't strike first. But he's not a good man. He can't be. Good is a luxury for people who've never had to make impossible choices. Elena moved toward the door. Mr. Moreau makes those choices so others don't have to, whether that makes him good or evil. She shrugged. Perhaps it makes him necessary. Sleep, Miss Pierce. You're safe here. That's all that matters. She left, closing the door softly behind her. Kaelyn sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. Necessary. Maybe that was the right word. Not good. Not evil. Just necessary. The kind of man who existed because the world was broken, and sometimes broken things required violent fixes. She'd asked for this, climbed into his car, brought Noah here, made a choice in that alley when her options had been die or survive. She'd chosen to survive. Now she had to live with what that meant. The clock on the mantel read 3:47 a.m. Kaelyn lay down on the couch, pulling one of Elena's blankets over herself, and stared at the dying embers in the fireplace. Outside, the guards walked their routes. The cameras tracked the darkness. The walls held firm against the world beyond. And somewhere in this fortress, Dante Moreau was awake too, making phone calls and giving orders and ensuring that the woman he'd pulled from an alley would never have to run again. Kaelyn closed her eyes. Tomorrow she'd ask more questions. Tomorrow she'd figure out what came next, what debts she owed, what prices needed paying. Tonight, she just needed Noah to wake up safe. Everything else could wait. She woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For a confused moment, Kaelyn didn't remember where she was. Then it came back in pieces. The alley, the blood, Dante's cold eyes, the drive through the rain. She sat up fast, heart pounding, and immediately winced as her bruised ribs protested. Noah. She rushed to his bedroom, but the bed was empty, covers thrown back, panic spiked. Then she heard laughter, actual laughter, from the hallway outside. Kaelyn pulled open the door and followed the sound down the corridor, through rooms she didn't remember passing last night. The house looked different in daylight, less fortress, more manor. Tall windows, art on the walls, everything tasteful and expensive and completely foreign. The laughter was coming from the kitchen. She pushed through the swinging door and stopped dead. Noah sat at a massive marble island, wearing clean pajamas she didn't recognize, with a plate of pancakes in front of him. And he was smiling, actually smiling as Elena poured syrup in a perfect spiral on top. But that wasn't what made Kaelyn's breath catch. Dante Moreau stood at the stove, sleeves rolled up, making more pancakes. No suit jacket, just dark slacks and a white shirt that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He looked normal, domestic, like a man making breakfast instead of a man who'd ordered a murder 12 hours ago. He glanced up when Kaelyn entered, and something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "Good morning," he said. "Coffee?" Kaelyn just stared at him, at Noah, at the surreal domesticity of it all. "He came down around 7, Elena explained, reading Kaelyn's expression. "Hungry. Mr. Moreau was already awake." "I don't sleep much," Dante said, sliding another pancake onto the growing stack. "And your nephew apparently doesn't either." Noah looked at Kaelyn, and his smile faded slightly, like he thought he might be in trouble. She quickly crossed to him, running her hands through his hair. "It's okay, baby. I'm glad you found breakfast." She looked at Dante. "Thank you." "He's a good kid." Dante brought the plate of pancakes to the island, setting it down within Noah's reach. "Polite. Knows how to say please without speaking." Kaelyn watched Noah sign thank you to Dante, small hands forming the gesture carefully, and Dante signed back, "You're welcome," with perfect fluency. Her jaw dropped. "You know sign language." "I know many languages." Dante poured coffee into a mug, slid it across to her. It's useful in my line of work. Right, his work. Organized crime. Solving problems for people with nowhere else to turn. Kaelyn took the coffee with shaking hands and drank. It was perfect. Of course it was. We need to talk, Dante said quietly, about what happens next. Noah's eyes darted between them, too perceptive. Kaelyn forced a smile. How about you finish breakfast first, baby? Then maybe Elena can show you the library. I bet there are some good books. Noah nodded slowly, but he didn't look away from Dante. There was something in his expression. Trust, maybe. Or recognition. Like he'd identified Dante as safe in whatever silent calculus traumatized children used to measure the world. God. Kaelyn hoped he was right. Library's on the second floor, Elena said, already moving toward Noah. Lots of picture books. And I think there might be some colored pencils. She guided the boy out gently, and then it was just Kaelyn and Dante in the enormous kitchen, morning light pouring through the windows and the weight of reality settling between them. Dante leaned against the counter, coffee cup in hand, watching her with those unreadable dark eyes. So, Kaelyn said, what happens next? But before Dante could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his entire expression changed, went flat and cold in a way that made Kaelyn's stomach drop. He answered without speaking, just listened. 30 seconds. A minute. His jaw tightened. Then, how many? A pause. Lock it down, no one in or out without clearance. And find out how he got the address. He hung up, looked at Kaelyn. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where Marcus Holloway is currently 30 miles away with 6 armed men asking questions about his brother's disappearance. Dante's voice was perfectly calm. And the kind where someone just tried to breach my perimeter from the south gate. The coffee cup slipped from Kaelyn's fingers and shattered on the marble floor. The sound of breaking porcelain seemed to echo forever in the sudden silence. Coffee spread across the white marble like blood, dark and accusatory. Kaelyn stared at the mess, her mind refusing to process what Dante had just said. Marcus Holloway. 6 armed men. Breach attempt. We need to move you. Dante was already in motion, setting his cup down with controlled precision, pulling his phone back out. Elena will take you and Noah to the safe room. Safe room? Kaelyn's voice came out strangled. You have a safe room? I have 3. He was typing rapidly, messages firing off to people she couldn't see. The main one is reinforced concrete, independent air supply, enough provisions for 72 hours. You'll be... No. The word came out harder than she intended. No, I'm not hiding in a hole while you... What? Go to war? Dante's eyes snapped up from his phone. This isn't a negotiation. You're right. It's not. Kaelyn's hands were shaking, but she crossed her arms to hide it. Because I didn't ask to be locked up like a prisoner. You said I'd be safe here. You said, and you will be, in the safe room, while my people handle the threat. His voice was still calm, but something had shifted underneath. Impatience, maybe, or the first hint of actual anger. Marcus Holloway is not Trent. He's smarter, more connected, and if he's here with 6 men, he's not planning a conversation. How did he find us so fast? The question burst out. Trent only disappeared last night. How does Marcus already know? Someone talked. Dante's jaw tightened. Someone in Trent's circle saw something. A car. A license plate. Or... He stopped, his expression going even colder. Or someone in my organization has loose lips. The implication hung in the air like poison. A leak. A betrayal. The walls Dante had promised were impenetrable suddenly felt like paper. Footsteps in the hallway made them both turn. One of Dante's men appeared, not the driver from last night, someone new, younger, maybe 30, with a tactical vest already strapped on and a radio earpiece blinking. South perimeter's secure, the man said. False alarm. Deer tripped the sensors. But we've got eyes on the main road. 3 vehicles heading this way. Black SUVs. Tinted windows. Marcus doesn't travel light, Dante muttered. To the man, activate full lockdown protocol. No one gets past the outer wall. And get Chen to run facial recognition on anyone who gets close to the cameras. Yes, sir. The man disappeared as quickly as he'd come. Kaelyn's chest felt tight. 3 vehicles. How many men was that? 10? 15? And Dante's people were what? Ready to start shooting in the middle of a Monday morning? This is insane, she whispered. I should call the police. The police won't help you. Dante's voice cut through her rising panic like a blade. Half of them are on someone's payroll. The other half will show up 3 hours too late and file paperwork over your body. Is that what you want? I want my nephew to be safe. Then trust me. He crossed to her, close enough that she could see the absolute certainty in his eyes. I have been doing this for 20 years. I have protected hundreds of people from threats worse than Marcus Holloway, and I have never lost someone under my roof. There's always a first time, Kaelyn shot back. Something flickered across Dante's face. Pain, maybe, or the ghost of old failures. Yes, he said quietly. There is, which is why you're going to the safe room, now. He reached for her arm. She jerked back. Don't touch me. They stared at each other. Outside, she could hear vehicles moving, men shouting orders, the mechanical sound of heavy gates sliding shut. The fortress was sealing itself, and she was inside it. I saved your life last night, Dante said, his voice dangerously soft. I killed a man for you. I brought you into my home. The least you can do is follow simple instructions designed to keep you breathing. I didn't ask you to kill anyone. The words came out before Kaelyn could stop them. I didn't ask for any of this. Maybe I should have just what? Died in that alley? Let Trent carve you up and then go after Noah? Dante's control was starting to crack, heat bleeding into his voice. You think you had better options? You think there was some magical third choice where you walked away clean? I think I traded one prison for another. Kaelyn's voice rose. At least with Trent, I knew what I was dealing with. At least I understood the rules. But you... She gestured at the pristine kitchen, the expensive appliances, the world of casual violence wrapped in silk. I don't know what you are. I don't know what you want from me. And I don't know if keeping us safe means we're guests or we're hostages, Dante finished coldly. Is that what you think this is? I don't know what to think. Silence crashed down between them. Kaelyn was breathing hard, her ribs aching, her face still bruised from last night. Dante stood perfectly still, his hands at his sides, but there was something coiled in his posture now, something dangerous. When he spoke again, his voice was very quiet, very controlled. The door is unlocked, he said. It has been unlocked since the moment you arrived. You want to leave? Leave. Take Noah. Walk out the front gate. I'll even have someone drive you back to the city. He paused. And then you can explain to that boy why you chose pride over his safety. Why you'd rather risk Marcus Holloway hunting you down than accept help from someone you don't fully trust. The words landed like punches. Because he was right. God damn him, he was right. Kaelyn had nowhere else to go. No money, no family, no allies except this cold-eyed stranger who'd appeared in an alley like some kind of avenging angel and casually rearranged her entire life. She hated it, hated the helplessness, hated that her choices had narrowed to this: trust a criminal or die. Where's Noah? She asked finally, her voice rough. Second floor library with Elena. He's fine. I need to see him. After you're in the safe room. Now. She met Dante's eyes. I need to see him now. I need to tell him what's happening, and then... She swallowed hard. Then I'll go wherever you want. But I'm not disappearing without explaining it to him first. Dante studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. 5 minutes. He led her through the house in silence, their footsteps echoing on polished floors. Outside the windows, Kaelyn could see men moving across the grounds. Not running, but purposeful, carrying weapons she couldn't identify. The fountain in the circular drive had been turned off. The gates were closed, massive and forbidding. They climbed a curved staircase to the second floor. The library was exactly what she'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather chairs, tall windows with a view of the grounds. And in the corner, Noah sat cross-legged on the carpet with Elena, building something elaborate out of wooden blocks. He looked up when Kaelyn entered, and his whole face brightened. Then he saw her expression, and the brightness died. Hey, baby. Kaelyn crossed to him, kneeling down despite her protesting ribs. I need to talk to you about something, okay? Noah's eyes flicked to Dante, standing in the doorway, then back to her. Waiting. There are some bad people looking for us, Kaelyn said carefully. People who want to hurt us because of what happened last night. So Mr. Moreau is going to take us somewhere very safe inside the house, like a special room where nothing can get to us, just for a little while. Noah's hands moved rapidly. How long? Sign language. He was using sign language. When had he learned? Then she remembered. Dante signing "You're welcome" at breakfast. Of course, Noah had been paying attention. The boy missed nothing. I don't know, baby. A few hours, maybe. But I'll be with you the whole time. And Elena, too, probably. We'll bring books and… Noah's hands moved again. Is someone going to die? The question hit Kaelyn like ice water. She opened her mouth, closed it. What could she possibly say to that? Dante spoke from the doorway, his voice gentle in a way she hadn't heard before. I hope not. But if they try to hurt your aunt, then yes, someone might die. Noah looked at him for a long time, then signed, good. The single word, formed with small, deliberate hands, carried more weight than a scream. Kaelyn felt something crack in her chest. This was what they'd done to him. Trent and Marcus and all the violence that had stalked their lives. They'd taken a 7-year-old boy and taught him that death could be good if it meant safety. Come here. She pulled Noah into her arms, holding him tight. He was so small, so fragile. It's going to be okay. I promise. Empty words. She had no idea if it would be okay, but she said them anyway because that's what you did when you were all a child had left. Elena stood smoothly. I'll gather some things, books, games, snacks. She looked at Dante. How long should I prepare for? Worst case, 24 hours. Dante checked his phone again, frowning at whatever he saw. Best case, this is over in 2. Over how? Kaelyn asked. Dante's eyes were cold again, distant. However it needs to be. Jim. The safe room was in the basement, behind a section of wall that swung open on hidden hinges when Dante pressed his palm to a biometric scanner. The entrance was narrow, just wide enough for one person at a time, and led to a steel door with a wheel lock like something from a submarine. Dante spun the wheel and the door opened with a pneumatic hiss. Inside was a space maybe 20 feet square. Concrete walls. LED lights recessed in the ceiling. A bank of monitors showing camera feeds from around the estate. Shelves stocked with water bottles, MREs, first aid supplies. 2 narrow beds. A bathroom barely bigger than a closet. It looked like a bomb shelter. Which, Kaelyn supposed, it basically was. Noah stepped inside cautiously, his eyes going wide as he took in the screens. One showed the front gate, another the perimeter wall. A third showed the driveway where Dante's men were setting up some kind of barricade. The feeds are live, Dante explained. You'll be able to see everything that happens. The door locks from inside. Just turn the wheel clockwise. There's a radio on the desk if you need to communicate. Channel 3 is secure. How do we know when it's safe to come out? Kaelyn asked. I'll come get you myself. Dante paused at the threshold. Or Elena will, if I'm occupied. Occupied. What a polite word for whatever violence was about to unfold. Elena arrived with 2 canvas bags full of supplies, books, colored pencils, a handheld gaming device for Noah, packages of crackers and juice boxes. She set everything down efficiently, already making the space livable. There's a ventilation system, she told Kaelyn, pointing to a grate near the ceiling, independent of the main house, and the walls are rated to withstand small arms fire, so even if someone breaches the mansion, they won't breach the mansion, Dante cut in. Elena gave him a look. Even if they do, you're safe here. Kaelyn wanted to ask how many times Elena had done this. How many people had hidden in this room while Dante's world erupted in violence above them? But the question stuck in her throat. Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his jaw tightened. They're at the outer perimeter. 3 vehicles confirmed. 12 men total. 12? Kaelyn's voice came out thin. I have 18 here and 6 more en route. Dante was already backing out of the room. The math is in our favor. This isn't math, it's war. Yes. He met her eyes. Which is why you need to stay here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone except me or Elena. Understood? Dante. But he was already moving up the stairs, Elena following close behind. Kaelyn stood frozen in the doorway, watching them disappear. Then she felt Noah's hand slip into hers. She looked down. The boy was scared. She could see it in his eyes. But he was trying to be brave, trying to trust that the adults would handle this. "Okay," Kaelyn whispered. "Okay, baby. Let's get inside." They stepped into the safe room together. Kaelyn pulled the heavy door closed and spun the wheel lock until it clicked. The sound was final, absolute. They were sealed in. Noah immediately gravitated to the monitors, climbing onto the chair in front of the desk to get a better view. Kaelyn joined him, her heart hammering as she watched the screens. Camera 1 showed the front gate. The 3 black SUVs had stopped maybe 50 yards back, just at the edge of the camera's range. Men were getting out, big men, moving with purpose, checking weapons. Camera 2 showed Dante's people taking positions behind the barricade. She counted 8 of them, all armed, all wearing tactical gear that looked military grade. Camera 3 showed the mansion's entrance, empty for now, waiting. "Come on," Kaelyn said, trying to pull Noah away from the screens. "Let's do something else. Noah shook his head firmly, his eyes locked on the monitors. He wasn't going anywhere. Kaelyn sank into the chair beside him, her hand finding his. They sat together in the fluorescent-lit bunker, watching violence prepare to unfold. On camera 1, a man stepped forward from the SUVs. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a shaved head and a goatee. Even through the camera's pixelated feed, Kaelyn recognized the walk, the posture. Marcus Holloway. He stopped at the gate, looking up at the cameras, and smiled. Then he pulled out a megaphone. His voice crackled through the safe room's speakers. Dante must have routed the audio somehow. "Dante Moreau, I know you can hear me. I know you're watching." Static. Breathing. "My brother disappeared last night. Eyewitnesses say he was dragged into a black sedan by men in suits. Your men." Marcus paused. "Now, I don't want trouble. I'm a reasonable man, so I'm going to give you one chance to send him out, alive and unharmed. You do that, we leave. No problem." Silence from the estate. Marcus's smile widened. "Or you can keep playing games, and I start turning this place into a fucking war zone. Your choice, Moreau. You've got 5 minutes." The megaphone clicked off. Kaelyn's heart was slamming against her ribs. Beside her, Noah's hand tightened around hers. "He's bluffing," she whispered. "He has to be bluffing. He can't attack this place in broad daylight. The police will—" Noah's other hand moved. "No police coming." "How do you—" Then Kaelyn understood. The boy had been around violence long enough to recognize its rhythms. Police didn't show up when powerful men had disagreements. Police showed up later after the bodies were already cold to file reports nobody would read. On camera 2, Dante appeared, walking out from the mansion, alone, hands empty and visible. He crossed the driveway with that same unnatural calm, like he was heading to a business meeting instead of a confrontation with 12 armed men. He stopped at the inner gate, the one that separated the mansion grounds from the outer perimeter, and looked toward the cameras, directly at them, like he could see Kaelyn watching. Then he spoke, his voice clear through the speakers. "Trent Holloway is dead. I killed him myself after I watched him beat a woman half to death in an alley. His body is currently somewhere in Lake Michigan. You're welcome to dive for it." Marcus's expression didn't change. "So you admit it?" "I admit I removed a piece of shit from the world. If you want revenge, Marcus, you're welcome to try. But you won't walk away." Dante paused. "Your brother was a coward who threatened children, are you?" "Careful, Moreau. You're outnumbered." "I've been outnumbered before." Dante's voice was cold as winter. It didn't save them either. For 5 long seconds, nobody moved. The two groups faced each other across 50 yards of manicured grounds. Dante alone in front of his gate, Marcus surrounded by his men, both of them calculating odds and consequences. Then Marcus raised his hand, and everything went to hell. The gunfire started before Kaelyn even registered the movement. Muzzle flashes from Marcus's people, sharp cracks echoing across the grounds. Dante was already moving, diving behind a stone pillar as bullets chewed into the gate behind him. His people returned fire immediately. The barricades erupted with controlled bursts, disciplined and precise. 2 of Marcus's men went down in the first 3 seconds, one clutching his leg, the other not moving at all. "Oh God," Kaelyn breathed. "Oh God, oh God." Noah pressed closer to her but didn't look away from the screens. He needed to see, needed to know what was happening. On camera 1, Marcus was shouting orders, pulling his men back behind the SUVs, using them for cover. Smart. The vehicle's doors were probably armored. On camera 2, Dante had made it to the barricade. He was on the radio now, coordinating something. His mouth moved, but Kaelyn couldn't hear the words over the gunfire. Then she saw movement on camera 3. The mansion's side entrance. 2 of Marcus's men had circled around somehow, through the woods, maybe, bypassing the main gate. They were trying the door, testing it. "No," Kaelyn whispered. "No, they're getting in." The door exploded outward, and one of Dante's people appeared, weapon raised. The 2 intruders scattered. More gunfire. One went down. The other made it to cover behind a maintenance shed. This wasn't a confrontation anymore. It was a full combat situation. Military tactics, kill zones, overlapping fields of fire. How many people were going to die here? How many bodies would be scattered across the perfect lawn before this ended? On camera 1, Marcus was yelling into his phone, calling for reinforcements maybe, or telling someone to contact their inside man, because that's what this felt like. A coordinated assault. Someone had told Marcus exactly where to hit, when to hit, how many men Dante kept on site. Someone in Dante's organization was a traitor. The thought made Kaelyn's blood run cold. Camera 2 showed Dante moving again, low and fast, reaching one of his wounded men and dragging him back to better cover. Bullets sparked off the pavement inches from his head, but his hand stayed steady, applying pressure to the wound, issuing commands. He'd done this before, many times before. It showed in every movement. 5 minutes, Kaelyn muttered. He said best case 2 hours. It's been 5 minutes and people are already... The lights flickered. Noah made a small sound. The first vocalization Kaelyn had heard from him in months. Not quite a word, just a terrified exhale. The lights steadied, the monitor stayed on, but Kaelyn's heart was racing. "It's okay," she said automatically. "The safe room has its own power. We're okay." But she wasn't okay. None of this was okay. On the screens, the battle was evolving. Marcus's people had stopped trying to breach the inner gate and were spreading out, looking for weak points. The man behind the maintenance shed was laying down covering fire, while 2 others tried to scale the outer wall using climbing equipment they'd pulled from the SUVs. Dante's people shot them down before they made it halfway up. Bodies fell. Someone screamed. Kaelyn turned Noah's face away from the monitors. "Don't watch that part." But he twisted back, his eyes fierce. He needed to see, needed to witness what was being done to keep them safe. 7 years old and already learning that safety came covered in blood. The firefight lasted another 8 minutes. 8 minutes of chaos and gunfire and men dying on expensive lawn furniture. By the time it ended, 4 of Marcus's people were down, 2 clearly dead, 2 wounded, and being dragged back to the SUVs by their companions. Dante's side had taken casualties too. Kaelyn had watched 3 of his men go down, though she couldn't tell how badly they were hurt from the camera angles. Marcus himself was still standing, still barking orders, but his force was depleted. 8 men left, maybe. Not enough to sustain an assault. He made one more attempt, sent 4 men to rush the gate in a coordinated push while the others provided suppressing fire. Dante's people cut them down with brutal efficiency. 1 made it to the gate before taking a bullet to the chest. The other 3 retreated, 1 limping badly. Then Marcus pulled back. Actually pulled back. His remaining men loaded the wounded into the SUVs, engines roaring to life. Within 30 seconds they were gone, tires screaming on asphalt as they fled back toward the main road. Silence crashed down. On the monitors, Dante was already moving among his people, checking wounds, issuing orders. Kaelyn counted casualties, 3 of his men down, 1 being carried toward the mansion on a stretcher. Blood stained the perfect driveway. Bullet casings littered the ground like brass rain. "Is it over?" Kaelyn whispered. "Is it?" The radio on the desk crackled to life. Dante's voice rough and tired. "Kaelyn, you can come out now. It's clear." She didn't move. Couldn't move. Her legs had turned to water. Noah was already at the door, working the wheel lock with small, determined hands. It took him 3 tries, but he got it open, the heavy steel swinging inward. Kaelyn followed on numb legs, climbing the stairs back to the basement proper. then up to the main floor. The house seemed unchanged, pristine and quiet, like nothing had happened. But she could smell it now. Gunpowder, copper, fear sweat. Dante was waiting in the foyer, his white shirt stained with blood that wasn't his. He looked exhausted, older somehow. The careful mask had cracked, and what showed through was just a man, tired and angry and carrying too much weight. "You kept him away from the monitors?" he asked. He needed to watch. Dante nodded slowly. "Smart kid." "Smart shouldn't matter. He's 7. He shouldn't—" Kaelyn's voice broke. "How many died?" "4 of theirs. None of mine, though Collins might lose his arm depending on how surgery goes." Dante rubbed his face. "Marcus got away. That's a problem. He'll come back. Yes. With more people. Yes. So this isn't over." "No." Dante met her eyes. "It's just beginning." Kaelyn felt the last of her hope crumble. She'd thought maybe if they fought off Marcus once, he'd realize Dante was too dangerous to mess with and back off. But of course, that wasn't how this worked. Blood demanded blood. Violence bred more violence, and Marcus Holloway had just lost 4 men in front of witnesses. He couldn't let that stand. Not if he wanted to keep any respect in whatever criminal circles he traveled. "I need to make some calls," Dante said. "We need to move you, tonight. This location is compromised." "Move us where?" "I have other properties. Safer ones." He was already pulling out his phone. "But first I need to find out who told Marcus where you were, who gave him the layout, the timing. You think someone in your organization—" "I know someone in my organization sold us out." His voice was flat, cold. "And when I find them, they're going to wish Marcus had killed them first." The words should have terrified her. Instead, Kaelyn just felt numb. Noah tugged at her sleeve. She looked down. He was signing something. The man outside, the one in charge. "I saw him before." Kaelyn's stomach dropped. "What?" Noah signed again, more emphatically. "At Aunt Sarah's apartment, last year. He came to see Mom. Sarah, Kaelyn's sister, who died of an overdose 6 months ago." "Are you sure?" Kaelyn knelt down, gripping Noah's shoulders. "Baby, are you absolutely sure it was the same man?" Noah nodded. Dante was watching them, his expression unreadable. "What did he say?" "He says—" Kaelyn's mouth was dry. "He says Marcus knew his mother, came to visit her before she died. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "When?" Dante asked quietly. Kaelyn looked at Noah. He held up fingers. 7. Then made a gesture she'd come to recognize. Downward motion, like falling. 7 months ago. A month before Sarah overdosed. Dante's jaw tightened. "What was your sister's relationship with the Holloways?" I didn't think she had one." Kaelyn's mind was racing. She was using pretty heavily by then. She knew Trent through me, but Marcus, I never saw them together. Never heard her mention him. "But your nephew saw him at her apartment, apparently." They stared at each other as the implications settled like ash. If Marcus had known Sarah, if he'd been at her apartment a month before she died, if there was some connection Kaelyn had never suspected. "Your sister's overdose," Dante said carefully. "Was there an investigation?" "Autopsy said fentanyl-laced heroin, ruled accidental. I tried to push for more, but the detective said—" Kaelyn stopped. "He said it was open and shut. Users overdose. That's what happens." "Who was the detective?" "Morrison, Tom Morrison, Chicago PD." Dante's expression darkened. "I know Morrison. He's on 3 different payrolls, none of them legitimate." The floor seemed to tilt under Kaelyn's feet. "You're saying what? That Sarah's death wasn't an accident?" "I'm saying it's convenient." Dante pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "Marcus visits your sister. Your sister dies. You get custody of the nephew. Trent, Marcus's brother, comes after you. And when I eliminate Trent, Marcus shows up here with perfect intelligence about my security. How does he know the layout? How does he know the shift changes? How does he know exactly when to hit? Because someone told him. Because someone's been feeding him information. Someone who knew you'd end up here." Dante looked up from his phone. This wasn't about revenge for Trent. This was never about Trent. Then what? I don't know yet. But your sister's death, Trent's assault, Marcus's attack, they're connected. And you, he gestured at her, at Noah. You're at the center of it. Kaelyn couldn't breathe, couldn't process this. Her sister murdered? For what? Why? Noah's hand slipped into hers again, small and warm and terrified. We need answers, Dante said, real ones, which means I need to have a conversation with Detective Morrison. He won't talk to you. He will. The certainty in Dante's voice was absolute. People always talk eventually. It's just a matter of providing the right motivation. Before Kaelyn could respond, one of Dante's men appeared, the one from earlier, now with a bandage wrapped around his arm and exhaustion carved into his face. Sir, we have a problem. Another one? Dante didn't sound surprised. Federal agents, 3 cars just turned onto the access road. They're maybe 2 minutes out. For the first time since Kaelyn had met him, Dante Moreau looked genuinely shocked. The feds, he repeated. Here. Now. Yes, sir. And they're not slowing down. Dante's mind was already moving, calculating. The bodies. Get the bodies off the lawn. Now. Collins into the med bay. Seal it. Weapons in the armory. Security footage wiped. Move. The man disappeared, already shouting orders. The house erupted into controlled chaos, men running, doors slamming, evidence vanishing with practiced efficiency. Dante turned to Kaelyn. Did you call anyone? Tell anyone where you were? No, I don't even know where we are. Then how? He stopped. His eyes widened fractionally. Marcus called them. Son of a bitch called the feds before he attacked. Why would he do that? Because win or lose, he gets me investigated. Cops crawling all over my property, my operations disrupted. And if I have to explain why there are bullet holes in my driveway, Dante's hands clenched. Smart, brutal and smart. Sirens now, distant but getting closer. You need to hide us, Kaelyn said. If they find us here, they'll ask questions. They'll figure out. No. Dante's voice was sharp. You stay visible. You're a domestic violence survivor who came to me for protection. That's your story. You stick to it. But Noah, what he saw, Noah doesn't talk, right? Dante looked at the boy. He stays quiet. You stay scared. I stay clean. He straightened his shirt, trying to hide the blood. And we all pray these agents are stupider than they look. The sirens were loud now, very close. Kaelyn pulled Noah against her side as blue and red lights washed through the foyer windows. Car doors slammed. Official voices shouted official words. Dante walked to the front door and opened it before they could knock, his expression perfectly neutral, perfectly polite, like a man greeting unexpected dinner guests instead of federal law enforcement. Gentlemen, he said smoothly, to what do I owe the pleasure? A man stepped forward, mid-40s, cheap suit, badge on his belt. FBI, probably. Dante Moreau? That's me? Special Agent Crawford, we received reports of gunfire and a possible hostage situation at this address. Mind if we come in? I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. That wasn't a request. Crawford pushed past Dante into the foyer, 3 more agents following. Their eyes swept the space, cataloging details, looking for weapons and blood and anything they could use. One of them spotted Kaelyn and Noah. Ma'am, the agent said, are you here voluntarily? Kaelyn's mouth went dry. Every instinct screamed to tell the truth, to explain everything, to beg for help. But she looked at Noah pressed against her side, at Dante standing very still in the doorway, at the weight of choices she'd already made. Yes, she heard herself say, I'm here voluntarily. And the child? My nephew. Mr. Moreau is helping us. With a situation. Agent Crawford's eyes narrowed. What kind of situation? Domestic violence. The lie came easier now. My ex-boyfriend. He found us. Mr. Moreau provided protection. By shooting at people on his front lawn? There was no shooting, Dante interjected smoothly. I believe you may have received erroneous information, Agent Crawford. As you can see, he gestured at the pristine foyer. Everything here is perfectly peaceful. Crawford wasn't buying it. Then you won't mind if we look around. I'm afraid I mind very much. Unless you have a warrant. We can get one. Then I suggest you do that. Dante's voice remained pleasant, but his eyes were ice. And while you're at it, perhaps investigate who's filing false reports about gunfire. Seems like a waste of federal resources, doesn't it? The two men stared at each other. Kaelyn could feel the tension crackling between them. Years of cat and mouse, old grievances, investigations that had gone nowhere. Crawford broke first. We'll be back, with a warrant. And when we are, Mr. Moreau, I suggest you have very good answers ready. I always do. The agents filed out, their expressions promising this was far from over. Car doors slammed, engines started. The sirens faded back toward the city. Silence returned. Dante closed the door very gently and leaned his forehead against it for just a second, breathing. That was too close, he said finally. They'll be back. Kaelyn's voice shook. With a warrant, with more people, and they'll find a clean house and no evidence. Dante pushed off the door. My people are good at making things disappear, but you're right about one thing. We're out of time. Out of time for what? He looked at her and she saw something new in his eyes. Not fear exactly, but recognition. The understanding that his world was collapsing faster than he could shore it up. Out of time to do this cleanly, he said quietly. Marcus knows where you are. The feds know I'm involved. There's a traitor in my organization feeding information to both sides. And somewhere in this mess, your sister's death is connected to all of it. So what do we do? Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then, we burn it all down. Every connection, every safe house, every operation that could tie back to you and Noah. I salt the earth and disappear you so thoroughly that even I can't find you. And you? Kaelyn asked. What happens to you? His smile was bitter. I do what I've always done, survive, and make sure everyone who tried to hurt you regrets it. Before she could respond, another one of Dante's people appeared. A woman this time, young, with haunted eyes. Sir, Chen ran the security footage through facial recognition before we wiped it. And? 3 of Marcus's men pinged in our database, all former Stateville inmates, all with connections to She hesitated. To the Volkov organization. The name meant nothing to Kaelyn, but Dante went very still. Volkov, he repeated softly. Yes, sir. You're certain? Positive. The tattoos match. The facial rec is 98%. Dante's jaw tightened. Get me everything we have on Volkov operations in Chicago. Personnel, assets, current locations. I want it in 10 minutes. Yes, sir. The woman disappeared. Kaelyn grabbed Dante's arm. Who's Volkov? Someone I thought I'd buried 5 years ago. Dante pulled out his phone, already making calls. Russian organized crime, used to control the North Side drug trade until I pushed them out. If they're back, if they're working with Marcus, then this is bigger than revenge for Trent. Much bigger. He held up a hand, phone to his ear. Victor, it's Moreau. I need you to tell me everything you know about Volkov movements in the last 6 months. Yes, I'll wait. He covered the phone's mouthpiece and looked at Kaelyn. Your sister. Did she ever mention Russians? Eastern European men? Anyone with an accent? Maybe? Sarah knew a lot of people when she was using. I didn't keep track. Think. This is important. Kaelyn closed her eyes, forcing her exhausted brain to work. Sarah in those last months, spiraling. Phone calls at odd hours, meetings she wouldn't explain. And once, just once, Kaelyn had stopped by unannounced and found her sister with a man. Older, accent she couldn't place. There was someone, she said slowly. Maybe 3 months before she died. A man at her apartment, 50s. Gray hair, suit. He left when I arrived, but she was terrified. I asked her who he was, and she said just a friend. But she was lying. Dante's eyes sharpened. Would Noah remember him? They both looked at the boy. He was sitting on the floor now, drawing something with the colored pencils Elena had given him. Not looking at them, but clearly listening. Baby, Kaelyn said gently. The man at Mommy's apartment, the one you saw with Marcus. Were there other men? Other people who came to visit? Noah didn't look up, but his hands moved across the paper, drawing rapidly. He turned the page around. It was crude but clear. A man's face. Older. Gray hair. Sharp features. And beneath it, Noah had written in careful block letters, "The boss." Kaelyn's blood ran cold. Dante took the paper, studying it. "This man, he came to Sarah's apartment?" Noah nodded. "Multiple times?" Another nod. "And you saw him with Marcus?" Nod. Dante's phone crackled. He lifted it back to his ear. "Victor, I'm going to describe someone to you. Tell me if it matches anyone in the Volkov organization." He rattled off details from Noah's drawing. There was a long pause. Then Victor said something that made all the color drain from Dante's face. "You're certain?" Dante asked. "Absolutely certain?" More talking from the other end. "Understood. Stay low. If this is what I think it is, anyone connected to me is a target." He hung up. Kaelyn waited, dreading whatever was coming. "The man Noah drew is Alexei Volkov," Dante said quietly. "Victor's cousin, and one of the most dangerous men in Chicago. If he was visiting your sister, if he was working with Marcus..." He stopped, started again. "Your sister wasn't just a user, Kaelyn. She was being used." "Used for what?" "I don't know yet. But Volkov doesn't waste time on random addicts. If he was cultivating her, there was a reason. Something she had, something she knew, something he wanted." "She had nothing. She worked retail when she could hold a job. She lived in a shithole apartment. She had no money, no connections, no..." Kaelyn stopped. Because Sarah had one thing, one connection that mattered. She looked at Noah, still sitting quietly on the floor. "Oh God," she whispered. "They wanted Noah." Dante's expression confirmed it. "But why?" Kaelyn's voice was rising. "He's 7 years old. What could they possibly..." "I don't know, but if Volkov went to the trouble of befriending your sister, keeping tabs on her, possibly even..." He stopped, but the implication hung there. "If he orchestrated her death to get the boy into the system or into your custody specifically, this was always about Noah." Kaelyn felt sick. Sarah's overdose, Trent coming after me, all of it was to get to Noah. Which means we need to find out why a 7-year-old boy matters so much to Russian organized crime. Noah had gone very still. His eyes were huge. Terrified. Because he understood. Kids always understood more than adults wanted to believe. Kaelyn crossed to him, gathering him into her arms. "Nobody's taking you. Nobody's using you. I don't care what they want. They can't have you." But even as she said it, she knew how hollow the words were. Because what could she do against people like Volkov? People who killed mothers and manipulated investigators and sent entire armed assault teams to quiet estates in the middle of the day? What power did one waitress have against that? Dante's phone buzzed again. He read the message and his expression went carefully blank. "What?" Kaelyn demanded. "Morrison. Detective Tom Morrison. The one who investigated your sister's death." Dante held up the phone so she could see the screen. "He was found dead in his apartment 30 minutes ago. Single gunshot to the head. Ruled suicide." "Suicide." "That's what the report says." They stared at each other. "Someone's cleaning up loose ends," Kaelyn said. "And moving very fast." Dante started typing furiously. "I need to get you out of here. Tonight. Now. Before..." The lights went out. All of them. Foyer. Hallways. The security monitors. Everything. Dante moved instantly, pulling a weapon from somewhere. Kaelyn hadn't even seen him carrying one. "Stay low. Don't move." "What's happening?" "Power cut. Someone's cutting the power." His voice was tight, controlled. "This is a breach. Active breach." "I thought your systems were independent." "They are, which means someone got inside." He hit a button on his phone. Emergency channel. "Chen, talk to me. What's our status?" "Static." "Chen." More static. Then a voice, not Chen, accented, Russian. "Mr. Moreau, I believe we should talk." And then gunfire erupted from somewhere in the house. Close. Too close. The point of no return had arrived, and they were trapped inside it. The gunfire was close enough that Kaelyn could hear the brass casings hitting marble floors. Someone screamed. Not Dante's people. They were too well trained for that. Which meant someone else was inside. Someone who hadn't expected to meet resistance. Dante grabbed Kaelyn's arm in the darkness, his grip iron. "The safe room. Now." "We can't see." "I can." He was already moving, pulling her and Noah through the pitch-black foyer with absolute certainty. He knew this house the way other men knew their own heartbeat. Every step, every turn, every piece of furniture that could trip them. More gunfire. Closer now. The muzzle flashes painted the hallway in strobing orange light, just enough for Kaelyn to see shapes moving. 3 men in tactical gear advancing through what looked like the west corridor. Not Dante's people. The patches on their shoulders were wrong, foreign. Volkov's men. They'd gotten inside, past the walls, past the guards, past every layer of security Dante had promised would keep them safe. How? Kaelyn gasped as they ran. How did they? Later. Dante shoved them toward the basement stairs. Go. Get to the safe room. Lock the door. Don't open it unless you hear my voice and I use the word sanctuary. Not safe, not clear. Sanctuary. Understand? You're not coming? I need to stop the bleeding. He pressed something cold and heavy into her hand. A gun. You know how to use this? No, I can't. Point at the center of mass. Pull the trigger until it stops clicking. His hand closed over hers on the weapon. If anyone comes through that door and they're not me or Elena, you shoot them. No hesitation, no mercy. Understood? Kaelyn's hands were shaking so hard she nearly dropped the gun. Dante, go! He pushed her toward the stairs and then he was gone, disappearing into the darkness like smoke. She grabbed Noah's hand and they plunged down the basement stairs in complete blackness. Kaelyn's free hand scraped the wall, feeling for the passage. Her ribs screamed with every breath. Behind them, the gunfire intensified. Rapid bursts, shouts in Russian, the wet sound of bullets finding flesh. How many were inside? 5? 10? More? Her fingers found the biometric scanner. Dead. No power. Panic spiked. That sight. Then she remembered. Dante had said there was a manual override, a physical key somewhere near there. A small panel beside the scanner. She pried it open with her fingernails and felt inside. Metal. A keyhole. But no key. Shit, she breathed. Shit, shit, shit. Noah's hand left hers. She heard him moving in the darkness, his small fingers patting the wall, the floor, searching. Baby, we don't have time. He pressed something into her palm. Cold metal. A key. Where did you? But there was no time for questions. Kaelyn shoved the key into the lock and turned. Something clicked. The hidden door swung open on silent hinges. They stumbled into the passage. Kaelyn pulled the door shut behind them and felt for the wheel lock on the steel door ahead. Her hands found it. She spun it hard, the metal cold under her palms, until she heard the pneumatic hiss that meant the safe room was opening. They fell inside. Kaelyn slammed the door and spun the interior wheel, sealing them in. Darkness. Complete and absolute. Then emergency lights flickered on, dim red LEDs that bathed the concrete room in crimson. The monitors were dead. No power to the camera feeds, but the ventilation was running. That meant the backup generator was functioning at least partially. Kaelyn sank to the floor, her back against the steel door, the gun still clutched in her shaking hands. Noah pressed against her side, his breathing rapid and shallow. They were sealed in, safe, for now. But Dante was out there, Elena was out there, and Volkov's people were inside the house, hunting. Okay, Kaelyn whispered. Okay. We're okay. She didn't believe it. Neither did Noah, but she said it anyway because what else was there to say? The gun was heavy in her lap. Some kind of pistol, black metal, cold. She checked it the way she'd seen in movies, released the magazine, saw it was full, slapped it back in. 17 rounds maybe. 18. Enough to kill a lot of people if she could force herself to pull the trigger. Could she? If they came through that door looking for Noah, if Volkov himself appeared with that cold Russian smile, could she shoot him? Kaelyn's hands tightened on the grip. Yes, she could. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like something settling into place, some final piece of her old self dying and something harder taking its place. She wasn't the woman who'd cowered in that alley anymore. That woman had died the moment she'd climbed into Dante's car. This woman, this version of Kaelyn Pierce, would shoot anyone who tried to hurt her nephew, would kill without hesitation, would become exactly as monstrous as she needed to be. The thought should have broken her. Instead, it felt like freedom. Minutes crawled past. No sound penetrated the safe room's walls. No gunfire. No screams. Nothing. Just the hum of ventilation and her own ragged breathing. Kaelyn checked her watch. How long had it been? 10 minutes? 20? Time had lost meaning in the red-lit darkness. Noah shifted beside her. His hands moved, signing in the crimson glow. What happens if he doesn't come back? The question gutted her, but she answered honestly. Then we wait until it's quiet. Then we open the door and we run. Where? I don't know, baby. Somewhere far away. Somewhere they'll never find us. Even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. Volkov had found them here, in Dante's fortress. He'd found Sarah. He'd found Detective Morrison. He could find them anywhere. Unless they stopped running and started fighting back. The thought was insane. What could she possibly do against an organization like Volkov's? She had no money, no weapons, no training, just desperation and a 7-year-old boy who couldn't speak. But desperation was a weapon too. Dante had taught her that. She was still processing this when she heard it. Footsteps. Outside the safe room. In the passage. Kaelyn's heart slammed into her throat. She raised the gun, training it on the door, finger on the trigger. Beside her, Noah went absolutely still. The footsteps stopped right outside. Silence. Then a voice. Accented. Cultured. Russian. Miss Pierce, I know you can hear me. Not Dante. Not Elena. Kaelyn's finger tightened on the trigger. My name is Alexei Volkov, the voice continued, and I believe we have much to discuss about your nephew, about your late sister, about the rather unfortunate situation in which you now find yourself. She didn't answer, didn't breathe. Mr. Moreau is currently occupied with my associates, Volkov said. He's quite good, I must admit, but there are 12 of us and only one of him. The mathematics are not in his favor. 12, Jesus Christ. 12 men inside the house. I'm going to make you an offer, Miss Pierce. One time only. You open this door, you surrender the boy, and you walk away alive. I have no quarrel with you. My business is with the child. Kaelyn's voice came out steady despite the terror clawing at her throat. Go to hell. A long pause. Then something that might have been a laugh. Brave. Foolish, but brave. Very well. Since you've chosen to be difficult, she heard him move away from the door. I suppose I should explain why your nephew matters so much, why we went to such elaborate lengths to acquire him. I don't care. Oh, but you should, because Noah, Volkov's voice carried perfectly through the steel, is worth approximately $40 million. The words made no sense. Kaelyn's brain couldn't process them. I'm sorry, what? Your sister didn't tell you. Volkov sounded almost amused. No, I suppose she wouldn't. Sarah was many things, but forthcoming was not among them. My sister was a cashier. She had nothing. Your sister, Volkov interrupted, was the daughter of James Whitmore. The name hit Kaelyn like ice water. James Whitmore, the tech billionaire. The one whose company had gone public 3 years ago for an obscene amount of money. The one whose death last year had been all over the news. Private jet crash, no survivors, estate tied up in legal battles. That's insane, Kaelyn stammered. Sarah's father was some deadbeat who left before she was born. Our mother never even... Your mother had an affair with James Whitmore in 1998, Volkov said patiently. Brief, passionate, regrettable for all involved. When she became pregnant, Whitmore paid her to disappear. Quite handsomely, actually. But your mother had expensive habits. The money didn't last. Kaelyn's mind was reeling. You're lying. DNA doesn't lie, Miss Pierce. Sarah was James Whitmore's daughter, which makes Noah his grandson, his only living blood relative. No, this couldn't be real. When Whitmore died, Volkov continued, his estate became quite complicated. No will. No designated heirs. The company fought to keep everything tied up in probate. But blood... He paused. Blood has a way of cutting through legal complications. If someone could prove lineage, prove DNA connection to Whitmore, they could claim a significant portion of the estate. Then why, Kaelyn's voice cracked, why kill Sarah? If she was the heir, Sarah was an addict, unreliable, unstable. She would have been a nightmare in court. But a child, Volkov's voice took on a proprietary tone. A child can be controlled, managed, raised properly. And when that child comes of age with proper legal guardianship behind him, well, $40 million becomes accessible. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Volkov had befriended Sarah, gained her trust, maybe even supplied her drugs to deepen her dependence, then orchestrated her death to look like an overdose so custody of Noah would pass to Kaelyn, who had no idea about any of this, who could be eliminated or controlled easily. But Trent had complicated things. Trent's obsession with Kaelyn had drawn attention, created chaos, forced Volkov to adapt his plans. Marcus was working for you, Kaelyn said slowly. The whole time. The attack on the estate. That was you forcing Dante to reveal his hand, making him expend resources, getting him investigated by the feds. Very good, Volkov said approvingly. You're smarter than your sister. That's refreshing. And the traitor in Dante's organization. Someone feeding you information. Also correct, though I'm afraid that particular asset is no longer available. Mr. Moreau can be quite unpleasant when he feels betrayed. Kaelyn's stomach turned. Someone had died. One of Dante's own people. Killed for selling them out. Now, Volkov said, you understand the situation. You understand why I cannot simply walk away. $40 million is worth a significant investment of time and resources. I've already committed both. So I'm going to ask one final time. Open this door, give me the boy, and you live. No. Then you condemn not only yourself but Mr. Moreau as well. Because I assure you, Miss Pierce, I will get through this door eventually. It's simply a matter of time and the proper tools. And when I do, his voice went cold, I will make you watch what I do to him before I take the boy anyway. Kaelyn's hands were shaking so hard the gun rattled against her knee. Noah was crying silently beside her, his small body trembling. Tick-tock, Volkov said cheerfully. You have 60 seconds to decide. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. $40 million. Her nephew was worth $40 million, and she'd had no idea. Sarah had never said a word, never even hinted that Noah's father had been… Wait, Noah's father. Sarah had never talked about him, never mentioned a name. Kaelyn had always assumed it was some random hookup, someone Sarah had met while using. But what if… Who was Noah's father? Kaelyn asked suddenly. Silence from outside the door. Who was he? She demanded. If Sarah was Whitmore's daughter, who did she… Irrelevant, Volkov said. Bullshit, you know. You know who he was. That's why Noah matters so much. It's not just Whitmore's blood. 40 seconds, Miss Pierce. She was on to something. She could hear it in his voice. Some piece of the puzzle she hadn't seen yet. Kaelyn looked at Noah. Really looked at him. Dark hair. Dark eyes. Sharp features that she'd always thought came from Sarah's side of the family. But what if… Oh, God, she whispered. Noah was staring at her with those huge, solemn eyes, waiting. 30 seconds, Volkov called. You're his father, Kaelyn said. You and Sarah. That's why you can't just grab any Whitmore relative. It has to be Noah specifically, because he's yours. The silence stretched so long she thought Volkov had left. Then 20 seconds. Not a denial. An evasion, which meant she was right. You got her pregnant, Kaelyn continued, her voice gaining strength. You found out about her connection to Whitmore, and you cultivated her, used her, got her pregnant so you'd have a blood heir to the fortune, then killed her when she became inconvenient. 10 seconds. You're not taking him. Kaelyn stood, the gun raised, pointed at the door. You're not taking your own son and turning him into a piggy bank. I don't care how much money is involved. Time's up. She heard him step back, heard him speak in Russian to someone else, heard a mechanical sound she couldn't identify. Then the first explosion rocked the safe room. Not the door, that was solid steel. It would take heavy explosives to breach. But somewhere above them, in the basement, shaking dust from the ceiling and making the emergency lights flicker. Noah clutched at Kaelyn's legs, his silent scream more terrible than any sound. Another explosion, closer. They were systematically working their way toward the safe room, destroying everything in their path. The radio on the desk crackled to life. Dante's voice, rough and strained. Kaelyn, if you can hear me, get out. North tunnel, behind the water heater. There's a passage. Gunfire cut him off. Someone shouted in Russian. More shots, then static. Dante! Kaelyn grabbed the radio. Dante, answer me! Nothing. The emergency lights went out completely. Total darkness again. Then she heard it. Metal groaning, the door frame buckling under some kind of pressure. They were using hydraulic tools, spreading the frame, creating a gap. Kaelyn spun the wheel lock, unsealing the door. If they were coming in anyway, she'd rather meet them in the passage where she had room to maneuver than trapped in this concrete box. She grabbed Noah's hand. North tunnel, behind the water heater. Move! They burst out of the safe room into the basement passage. Her eyes were adjusting to the darkness, just barely. She could make out shapes. The water heater, the pipes running along the ceiling, there. A panel in the wall behind the water heater, barely visible. She pulled Noah toward it, her free hand fumbling with the panel. It didn't budge, locked, sealed, or maybe just stuck from years of disuse. Behind them, lights spilled into the passage. Flashlights. Volkov's men had breached the safe room and were coming. Kaelyn slammed her shoulder into the panel. Pain exploded through her injured ribs, but she did it again. Again. The panel cracked, gave way. Cold air rushed out. A tunnel. Narrow, dark, but leading away. She shoved Noah into it first. Go! Crawl! Don't stop! She followed, pulling herself into the cramped space just as the flashlights reached the passage behind her. She heard shouting, running feet, then gunfire. Bullets sparked off pipes inches from her head. Kaelyn crawled faster, one hand dragging Noah forward, the other still clutching the gun. The tunnel was barely 3 feet high, forcing them to move on hands and knees through dust and cobwebs, and God knew what else. Behind them, the flashlights were getting brighter, closer. Someone was following them into the tunnel. Her hand hit something solid. A wall, dead end. No. No, no, no. She felt frantically in the darkness. There had to be. Dante wouldn't have sent them here if it was a dead end. There had to be a way out. Her fingers found a handle. She pulled. A hatch opened above them, flooding the tunnel with gray pre-dawn light. They were outside. Kaelyn dragged herself up through the hatch, hauling Noah after her, and found themselves in a drainage ditch maybe 50 yards from the estate's perimeter wall. The sky was lightening to the east. Morning coming whether they were ready or not. Gunfire erupted from the house, visible now across the grounds. The mansion was burning, actually burning. Smoke poured from the west wing. The windows were shattered, and she could see bodies on the lawn. Too many to count. Dante's fortress was dying. Come on. She pulled Noah to his feet and they ran, staying low, following the drainage ditch toward the tree line beyond the wall. Behind them, someone shouted. More flashlights in the tunnel. They'd been spotted. Kaelyn didn't look back, just ran. Her ribs screamed, her legs burned. Noah was gasping beside her, but he kept moving, kept running, because the alternative was death, or worse. They reached the tree line just as bullets started chewing up the ground behind them. Kaelyn grabbed Noah and dove behind a massive oak, pressing them both flat against the trunk. More shots. Bark exploded inches from her face. She could hear them coming, 2, maybe 3 men, spreading out to flank them. She had the gun. 17 rounds. Maybe 18. Against 3 trained killers. The math wasn't good. Noah was looking at her with those huge, terrified eyes, waiting for her to save him, waiting for the adult to fix this. But Kaelyn didn't know how to fix this, didn't know how to fight, didn't know how to... Movement to her left. A man in tactical gear emerging from the trees, weapon raised. She didn't think, just raised the gun and pulled the trigger. The recoil shocked through her arms. The man spun, dropping. She'd hit him. Actually hit him. But now the others knew where she was. Bullets tore through the underbrush. She grabbed Noah and ran deeper into the woods, firing blind behind her. 3 shots. 4. The gun clicking empty far too fast. She fumbled with the magazine. It fell from her shaking hands into the dead leaves. Gone. The gun was useless now, just dead weight. She threw it aside and kept running, pulling Noah through the forest as dawnlight filtered through the trees and death chased them through the shadows. They burst out onto a road. Narrow, barely paved, cutting through the woods. Empty. No cars. No help. Kaelyn dragged Noah across the road and into the trees on the other side. They needed distance, needed to disappear, needed... A black SUV came around the bend, tires screeching. Kaelyn's heart stopped. More of Volkov's people. It was over. She pushed Noah behind her, ready to fight with her bare hands if that's what it took. The SUV skidded to a halt. The driver's door opened. Elena stepped out. "Get in!" the older woman shouted. "Now!" Kaelyn didn't question it, didn't hesitate, just grabbed Noah and ran for the vehicle, throwing themselves into the back seat as Elena gunned the engine. They tore down the road, the mansion disappearing behind them in a column of smoke. "Dante?" Kaelyn gasped. "Where's—" "Fighting." Elena's voice was tight. "He sent me to get you out. Said Volkov would breach the safe room. Said you'd run for the North Tunnel. How did you know where—" "I know all of his escape routes, all of his contingencies." Elena took a corner too fast, the SUV fishtailing. "He planned for this, for everything falling apart. He always has an exit strategy." "But he's still there. He's still fighting." "He's buying you time." Elena met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "That's what he does. He protects people, even when it costs him everything." The words hung in the air like a condemnation. Dante was still in that burning house, still fighting Volkov's people, still holding them off so Kaelyn and Noah could escape. She should feel grateful, relieved. Instead, she felt like she'd left her heart behind in the flames. "Where are we going?" Kaelyn asked. "Safe house, 2 hours north. He'll meet us there when he—" Elena's voice caught. "If he can." If. Not when. If. Kaelyn leaned back in the seat. Noah pressed against her side and watched the sunrise paint the sky in shades of fire. Somewhere behind them, Dante Moreau was fighting for his life, fighting for people he'd known less than 48 hours, fighting because he'd made a promise in a rain-soaked alley that he intended to keep. And she'd left him, run away while he bled. The thought made her sick. "We have to go back," she said. "No." Elena's voice was iron. "He's alone. He's outnumbered. We have to get you and the boys somewhere safe. That's what he ordered. That's what I'm doing." "I don't care about orders," Kaelyn's voice rose. "I'm not leaving him to die." "You already did," Elena snapped. "The second you got in this car, you made that choice. So don't insult either of us by pretending you can change it now." The words were brutal. True. Kaelyn had chosen survival over loyalty, had chosen Noah's life over Dante's. She'd make the same choice again, but that didn't make it hurt less. They drove in silence for 20 minutes. The sunrise turned the world golden and indifferent. Other cars appeared on the road, normal people heading to normal jobs, completely unaware that $40 million and a Russian crime lord and a dying man were somewhere behind them. Elena's phone rang. She answered without slowing down. "Yes?" A pause. Her expression went carefully blank. "I understand. Yes. I have them. We're en route." Another pause. "I'll tell her." She hung up. "That was Dante?" Kaelyn asked. "That was Victor. Dante's—" Elena hesitated. "Dante's second in command." The way she said it made Kaelyn's stomach drop. "What happened?" "Dante surrendered." The world tilted. "He what?" "Volkov had him pinned, 7 of his own people dead. No way out, so he negotiated." Elena's hands tightened on the wheel. "Himself in exchange for Volkov calling off the hunt for you and Noah. That's insane. Volkov will kill him." "Eventually." Elena's voice was hollow. "But first he'll use him. Leverage, information. Whatever he needs to consolidate power now that half the Chicago underworld knows he attacked Dante Moreau's estate. We have to do something. We have to— There is nothing we can do." Elena's voice cracked. "Dante knew the price when he made the deal. He chose it anyway." Kaelyn felt like she was falling, like the ground had opened up and swallowed everything solid. Dante had surrendered, traded his life for hers, for Noah's, for 2 people he barely knew. "Where is Volkov taking him?" she asked quietly. "I don't know. Victor's trying to find out. But Volkov has contacts everywhere. Safe houses, connections. He could be anywhere. The feds. We could—" The feds would love to arrest Dante Moreau. They'd throw him in a cell and lose the key. That's assuming Volkov doesn't kill him first. Elena shook her head. There's no good option here. There's only survival. And Dante bought you that. Don't waste it. But survival at what cost? Kaelyn looked down at Noah. The boy was staring at her with those huge dark eyes. Volkov's son. Whitmore's grandson. Worth $40 million to people who would kill anyone who got in their way. And Dante had given up everything to keep him safe. I need to know something, Kaelyn said. About Noah's father. About Volkov. Elena glanced in the mirror. What about him? Did Dante know? Did he know who Noah was? What he was worth when he picked us up? A long pause. Yes, Elena said finally. He knew. The admission hit like a physical blow. How? Dante makes it his business to know things. When you showed up in that alley with Trent Holloway, he ran your background within minutes, found the connection to Sarah Whitmore, found the DNA reports Volkov had commissioned, found everything. Elena's voice was flat. He knew exactly what he was getting into when he brought you home. Then why? Kaelyn's voice broke. Why did he help us? If he knew Volkov would come for Noah. Because that's who he is. Elena's eyes met hers in the mirror. Dante Moreau sees children being hunted and he steps in, every time, no matter the cost. It's the only decent thing about him. Kaelyn couldn't speak, couldn't process this. Dante had known everything, the danger, the money, the impossible odds, and he'd helped them anyway. The woman in the alley, Kaelyn whispered. 8 years ago, the one he said he didn't stop for. Who was she? Elena was quiet for a long time, then, his wife. The air left Kaelyn's lungs. I thought he said his wife died in an attack, a targeted hit. She did, but before that, Elena's voice was rough. She was running from someone. Domestic situation. She flagged down Dante's car on a back road, begged for help, and Dante... She stopped, breathed. Dante was late for a meeting, an important meeting, so he gave her money for a cab and drove away. Oh, God. She was found 3 hours later, beaten to death. And when Dante investigated, when he found out who she'd been running from, he realized he could have stopped it, could have saved her with 5 minutes and a phone call. Elena's hands were white-knuckled on the wheel. He never forgave himself. And after that, he never drove past another woman in trouble. The pieces fell into place. All of it. Dante's guilt. His absolute commitment to protecting Kaelyn and Noah. The way he'd looked at Noah and seen something more than a child, seen a second chance, an opportunity to not fail this time. He's going to die for us, Kaelyn said. Volkov will torture him for information and then kill him. And it's my fault. It's Volkov's fault. And Trent Holloway's. And every person who built the world that makes men like Dante necessary. Elena took an exit off the highway, heading into a landscape of strip malls and chain restaurants. Normal America. Safe America. You didn't ask for any of this. You're just trying to keep your nephew alive. So was Dante. Yes, and he succeeded. You're alive. Noah's alive. That's what he wanted. But at what cost? Kaelyn looked out the window as they passed a McDonald's, a Walmart, a gas station. The mundane machinery of ordinary life grinding on while somewhere Dante Moreau was paying for her survival with his own blood. She couldn't live with that. Wouldn't live with that. Elena, she said quietly, I need you to teach me something. What? How to fight back. Kaelyn met the older woman's eyes in the mirror. How to hurt Volkov the way he's hurt us. How to make him pay. Elena stared at her. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You're a waitress. You have no training, no connections, no resources. I have $40 million. Kaelyn's voice was hard. Or at least Noah does. Once we prove his lineage, once we claim the Whitmore estate. That will take years. Then we have years. However long it takes. Kaelyn's hands clenched. Volkov thinks he can use Noah as a piggy bank. Fine. We use the money first. We hire lawyers, investigators, private security. We build something he can't touch. And when we're strong enough, her voice dropped. We come for him. And we get Dante back. Elena pulled into a parking lot and stopped the car, turned to look at Kaelyn directly. That's suicide, she said. Maybe, but it's better than hiding for the rest of our lives. Kaelyn looked at Noah. Better than teaching him that when bad people hurt the ones you love, you just run away. Noah was watching her. His hands moved, signing clearly in the morning light streaming through the windows. I want to fight. 3 simple signs, 3 words that changed everything. Elena studied them both for a long moment. Then she started the car again. The safe house is 2 hours north, she said. It has internet, secure phones. Victor can get us whatever files we need on Volkov's operations. And then? Elena's expression was grim. Then we start teaching a 7-year-old boy and a waitress how to wage war on the Russian mafia. That's insane. Yes? Elena pulled back onto the road. But Dante did insane things every day. And somehow, he usually won. Usually, not always. Kaelyn leaned back in the seat. Noah pressed against her side and felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. Something that tasted like fury and grief and absolute determination. Volkov had taken everything from her sister, her safety, and now Dante. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd left her alive. And alive meant dangerous. They drove north into the rising sun, leaving smoke and death behind them, and Kaelyn started planning how to become someone she'd never imagined she could be. Someone who could hurt the people who hurt her. Someone who could save the man who'd saved her first. Someone who could teach her nephew that sometimes, when the world gave you no other choice, you stopped running and you fought back. Even if it killed you. Especially if it killed you. Because some things were worth dying for. And Dante Moreau had proven he thought she was one of them. Now she'd return the favor, or burn the whole world trying. The safe house was a cabin buried in Wisconsin woods, 40 miles from the nearest town. Elena parked the SUV in an overgrown driveway and killed the engine. The silence was immediate and absolute. No traffic, no sirens, just wind through pine trees and the distant call of some bird Kaelyn couldn't identify. We'll stay here until Victor makes contact, Elena said, already moving to check the perimeter. There's food, supplies, everything we need for a few weeks. Kaelyn helped Noah out of the car. The boy looked exhausted, traumatized, but his eyes were clear, focused. He'd made a decision back in the SUV, and 7-year-olds didn't reverse decisions easily. They went inside. The cabin was exactly what she'd expected. Spartan furniture, wood stove, shelves stocked with canned goods and bottled water. A gun safe in the corner. Maps of the region tacked to the walls. Dante's contingency planning extended even here. Elena went immediately to a locked cabinet and pulled out a satellite phone. She dialed a number from memory and waited. Victor. Yes, we're here. Secure. She paused, listening. Understood. Keep me updated. She hung up and looked at Kaelyn. Volkov moved Dante 3 hours ago. Warehouse district on the south side. Victor has eyes on the building, but can't get close without being spotted. Is he alive? As of 20 minutes ago, yes. As of 20 minutes ago. The words were a knife in Kaelyn's gut. How long before Volkov? She couldn't finish the sentence. I don't know, Elena said honestly. Depends on what Volkov wants from him. Information, leverage, public humiliation of a rival. She set the phone down. Dante knows how to survive interrogation. He's done it before. Before? Military. Before he came to Chicago. Before he built his empire. Elena started pulling weapons from the gun safe. Pistols, ammunition, something that looked like a very illegal submachine gun. He spent 3 years in private military contracting, Balkans, Middle East, places that don't officially exist on any map. He knows how to endure. The information was meant to be comforting. It wasn't, because enduring had limits. Everyone broke eventually. And when Dante broke, when he'd given Volkov everything he wanted, there'd be no reason to keep him alive. Kaelyn pulled out her phone, the one from her apartment, still miraculously in her pocket. Dead battery. Of course. I need to charge this, she said. Elena tossed her a cable. Why? Because I need to make some calls. To who? The police can't help you. The feds would just... Not the police. Kaelyn plugged in the phone and waited for it to power up. Lawyers. The kind who handle billion-dollar estates. Elena stared at her. You're serious? You're actually going to try to claim the Whitmore inheritance? I'm going to prove Noah's lineage, get a DNA test on record, file the paperwork. Kaelyn's voice was steady. And then I'm going to make sure everyone, the courts, the media, the feds, knows exactly who's hunting us and why. Volkov will kill you the second this goes public. Maybe, but he'll have a harder time killing us when every newspaper in America is running stories about a 7-year-old orphan being hunted by Russian mobsters for his inheritance. Kaelyn looked at Noah. We make it impossible for him to touch us without creating a massive scandal. We make ourselves too visible to disappear quietly. Elena's expression shifted. Something like respect flickered there. That might actually work, for keeping you alive at least. And while we're alive and protected by lawyers and media attention, Kaelyn's hands clenched. We figure out how to get Dante back. One person can't go up against Volkov's organization. Good thing we're not one person. Kaelyn held Elena's gaze. How many of Dante's people would help? Really help? Elena considered this. Victor, definitely. Maybe 6 others who owe Dante their lives. But that's not enough for an assault on a fortified warehouse. Then we don't assault it. We negotiate. With what leverage? Kaelyn smiled. It felt strange on her face. Cold. With the same leverage Volkov's using, a child, a DNA sample, and $40 million that he desperately wants. Understanding dawned in Elena's eyes. You want to trade Noah? No. Kaelyn's voice was iron. I want Volkov to think I'm willing to trade Noah. And when he shows up for the exchange, she paused, we don't give him what he wants. We give him something very different. This is dangerous. Everything's dangerous. Kaelyn's phone finally powered on. Notifications exploded across the screen. Missed calls, voicemails, news alerts. We're already dead if we just hide. At least this way we're choosing how we die. She opened her contacts and started searching for names. Sarah's old lawyer. The public defender who'd handled her custody case for Noah. Anyone who might know someone who dealt with estate law. Behind her, Noah was at the window, staring out at the trees. His reflection in the glass looked older than 7. Harder. He'd lost his mother to Volkov's manipulations. Lost his home, lost his voice to trauma. But he hadn't lost his will to fight. That made him dangerous. And Kaelyn was going to teach him just how dangerous he could be. She made the first call, then the second. By the 4th, she had the name of an attorney in Chicago who specialized in contested inheritances. By the 6th, she had an appointment scheduled for tomorrow morning. Elena watched all this with something like awe. You know this is insane, the older woman said. You know the odds are, terrible. Yes. Kaelyn set down the phone. But Dante faced terrible odds and he didn't run, so neither will I. He's a professional. You're learning. Kaelyn's voice was hard. Fast. And I have something Dante never had. What? Nothing left to lose. She looked at Noah. Volkov took everything that mattered. My sister. My safety. My future. The only thing I have left is that boy and a man who traded his life for ours. So yes, I'm going to do insane things. And yes, I'll probably die trying. But at least I'll die fighting instead of hiding. Elena studied her for a long moment. Then she pulled out one of the pistols from the gun safe and held it out. Then we start training, now, because if you're going into battle against Alexei Volkov, her expression was grim. You'd better learn how to shoot straight. Kaelyn took the gun. It felt different now. Not like a foreign object, like an extension of her will. Like something she'd been meant to hold all along. Outside, the sun climbed higher, and in a warehouse on Chicago's south side, Dante Moreau held on, waiting, hoping, believing that the woman he'd saved would somehow find a way to save him back, even though the odds were impossible, even though survival seemed like a fantasy. He believed, because that's what you did when you'd spent your whole life making impossible things happen. You believed one more time. And you fought until there was nothing left to fight with. Kaelyn chambered around, raised the weapon, and started learning how to become someone Volkov would regret leaving alive. The gun kicked hard against Kaelyn's palm, the report echoing through the Wisconsin woods like thunder. The beer bottle she'd been aiming at exploded into glittering fragments 50 feet away. Better, Elena said from beside her. But you're still anticipating the recoil. Let it surprise you. Kaelyn lowered the weapon, her hands aching. They'd been at this for 3 hours. Her ears rang despite the protective gear. Her shoulders screamed from holding the firing stance. But she was hitting targets now, consistently. It had been 4 days since they'd fled the burning estate. 4 days of shooting practice, hand-to-hand combat drills, and learning to move like someone who expected violence instead of someone who froze when it arrived. Elena was a brutal teacher, former Israeli military it turned out, before she'd ended up working for Dante. She didn't coddle, didn't soften the lessons. Good. Kaelyn didn't want soft, she wanted effective. Noah sat on the cabin's porch, watching. Elena had tried to send him inside for the firearms training, but he'd refused, just planted himself on the steps and stared with those huge dark eyes, absorbing everything. Again, Elena said. Fresh magazine. 5 targets. You've got 10 seconds. Kaelyn reloaded, her fingers finding the motions faster now. Muscle memory building. She raised the gun, exhaled, and fired. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 bottles shattered. The 5th shot went wide. 80%, Elena said. Good enough to maybe not die immediately. Comforting. It should be. 4 days ago you couldn't hit anything. Elena took the gun, cleared it, set it on the table beside them. But shooting paper targets isn't the same as shooting people. When the moment comes, when you have to pull that trigger on someone who's looking back at you, your body will try to stop you. Your conscience will scream. You need to be ready for that. I will be. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Kaelyn met her eyes. Because I've already killed someone. In the woods, when we were running, I shot him, and I didn't hesitate, and I didn't feel bad after. So when the time comes to shoot Volkov, her voice went cold. I'll be ready. Elena studied her for a long moment. You're changing fast. I have to. Dante wouldn't want you to. Dante isn't here. The words came out harsher than Kaelyn intended. And the longer we wait, the less likely he'll ever be here again. So I'm doing what needs doing, whether he'd approve or not. The satellite phone rang inside the cabin. Both women moved immediately, Kaelyn's hand dropping to the pistol at her hip. Another new habit, carrying a weapon everywhere, while Elena swept the tree line for threats. Clear. They went inside. Elena grabbed the phone. Yes? A pause. Say that again. Her expression darkened. When? How many? Another pause. Understood. We'll be ready. She hung up and looked at Kaelyn. That was Victor, the attorney you hired, Hoffman. He's been digging into the Whitmore estate, and he found something. What? James Whitmore had a will, a secret one, filed with a private firm 3 months before he died. Elena's voice was tight. It names Noah specifically, by name, as his sole heir. The room tilted. Kaelyn grabbed the table for support. How is that possible? Whitmore never even met Noah. Never acknowledged Sarah as his daughter. He had DNA proof. Commissioned tests 2 years ago, apparently. And once he confirmed the connection, Elena pulled out her laptop, opening an encrypted file Victor had sent. He changed everything, left the company to his board. But his personal fortune, the offshore accounts, the property holdings, the investments, all of it goes to Noah Whitmore Pierce, son of Sarah Whitmore, born June 7th. Kaelyn's legs gave out. She sank into a chair, her mind reeling. $40 million. Maybe more. Left to a boy who couldn't speak, by a grandfather who'd never met him, in a will that no one knew existed until now. Does Volkov know? She asked. Not yet. Hoffman's been careful. But he will. The second this will enters probate, the second lawyers start making noise, Volkov will find out. Elena closed the laptop. Which means we're out of time. If we're going to use Noah's inheritance as leverage, we need to move now. How fast can we get the DNA confirmed? Get Noah legally recognized as Whitmore's heir? Hoffman says 3 weeks minimum. Blood test, genetic comparison to Whitmore's samples on file, court filings. We don't have 3 weeks. Kaelyn stood, pacing. Dante doesn't have 3 weeks. Then we bluff. What? Elena's expression was grim. We tell Volkov we already have the confirmation. Tell him Noah's been legally recognized and the estate is in motion. We offer him a deal. He releases Dante. We give him a percentage of the inheritance once it clears. Enough to make it worth his while to keep us alive. He'll never believe we'd voluntarily give him money. He'll believe we'd do it to save Dante. Elena pulled out a map of Chicago, spreading it across the table. Victor says Volkov's been moving Dante every 48 hours, warehouse to warehouse, keeping him off balance. But there's a pattern. He stays south of the river, industrial districts, places he controls. She marked 3 locations with red X's. These are the sites Volkov's used in the last week. Victor thinks the next move will be here. She tapped a 4th location. Abandoned meatpacking plant. Volkov owns it through a shell company. Heavy security, but not impossible. Kaelyn stared at the map. You're talking about a rescue. I'm talking about options. We can try to negotiate. Offer Volkov money he won't get for months and hope he's patient. Or, Elena met her eyes. We go in, hard and fast. Get Dante out before Volkov knows we're there. With what? 6 people and some guns? 7. Victor found 2 more of Dante's crew willing to help. Ex-military. Good in a fight. Elena's jaw set. It's not much, but it's what we have. Kaelyn looked at the map, at the 4th X marking the meatpacking plant, then at Noah, still sitting by the window, drawing something in his notebook. If they tried to negotiate and failed, Volkov would kill them all. If they tried to raid the plant and failed, Volkov would kill them all. But at least the raid meant they died trying instead of begging. How soon can we move? Kaelyn asked. Victor needs 24 hours to assemble the team. Get weapons, scout the approach. Elena's voice softened slightly. But Kaelyn, you don't have to come. You could stay here with Noah. Stay safe. Let the professionals handle. No. The word was absolute. I'm going. Dante saved me. I'm saving him. You barely know how to shoot. Then I'll learn on the job. Kaelyn's hands clenched. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not letting other people fight my battles. If this goes bad, if we all die trying, at least Noah will know I didn't abandon the man who protected us. Elena looked like she wanted to argue. Then she just nodded. We leave tomorrow night. Victor will send the details. She started gathering the weapons from the table. Get some rest. Last time you'll sleep in a real bed for a while. But Kaelyn didn't rest. Couldn't rest. She spent the afternoon practicing reloading drills until her fingers moved without thought. Spent the evening reviewing the map, memorizing entry points and exit routes. Spent the night lying awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining all the ways this could go catastrophically wrong, and imagining Dante's face when she pulled him out of that hell. If he was still alive, if Volkov hadn't already broken him beyond repair, if. She pushed the doubts away and focused on the only thing that mattered, getting him back, or dying in the attempt. Victor arrived the next evening in a panel van with blacked-out windows. He was younger than Kaelyn expected, maybe 35 with a shaved head and prison tattoos crawling up his neck. But his eyes were sharp, professional. And when he shook her hand, his grip was exactly firm enough to convey respect without condescension. You're the waitress, he said. I was a waitress. And now? Now I'm someone getting my friend back. Victor smiled faintly. Good. Friends are worth dying for. He spread blueprints across the cabin's table. The meatpacking plant's layout, annotated with security camera positions, guard rotations, entry points. Volkov moved Dante here 6 hours ago, Victor said, pointing to a section marked cold storage. 3rd floor, east wing. 2 guards on the door. Maybe 4 more in the building. Volkov himself isn't on site. He visits every 12 hours for interrogation sessions, but he's not stupid enough to stay. How do you know all this? Kaelyn asked. One of the guards owes me money. Lots of money. He talks, or I make his life very unpleasant. Victor's expression didn't change. He says Dante's alive, but in bad shape. Broken ribs, maybe. Dislocated shoulder, multiple contusions, but conscious. Still fighting. Elena's jaw tightened. How long before Volkov decides he's gotten everything useful and just executes him? Days. Maybe a week. Victor pulled out photos, surveillance shots of the plant's exterior. But if we're doing this, it has to be tonight. Tomorrow Volkov moves him again and we lose our window. Tonight. Kaelyn's heart hammered. She'd known it was coming, but hearing it stated so baldly made it real. "What's the plan?" she asked. Victor gestured to the blueprints. Two-team approach. Team 1, me, Dmitri, and Alexei. We go in through the loading dock, create noise, draw the guards, make them think we're the main assault. While Team 2 goes where? Roof access. Fire escape on the north side. You, Elena, Marcus, and Chen. You rappel down to the 3rd floor, breach the cold storage, extract Dante, and get out through the ground floor emergency exit here. He traced a route with his finger. If everything goes perfect, you're in and out in 8 minutes. And if it doesn't go perfect, then we improvise until we're all dead or successful. Victor said it like he was discussing weather. This is a bad plan. Small team, limited intel. But it's the only plan we have. Dante would do the same for any of us. Kaelyn looked at the blueprints. 8 minutes. Breach, extract, escape. It sounded simple. It would be anything but. "I'm in," she said. "You understand you might have to kill people?" Victor's eyes were hard. Not targets at 50 feet. People standing right in front of you, looking at you, begging. "I understand. And if Dante can't walk, if he's too injured to move fast, you understand we might have to leave him." The question hit like ice water. "We're not leaving him. We might not have a choice." "Then I stay with him." Kaelyn's voice was steel. "You all get out. I stay." Victor studied her for a long moment. Then he looked at Elena. "She's serious." "Completely," Elena confirmed. "Foolish, but loyal." Victor started rolling up the blueprints. "We leave at 2200 hours, gear up at the staging area. Radio silence until we're on approach. Hoffman, your lawyer, he's filed preliminary paperwork claiming Noah's inheritance. If we don't make it out, at least there's a paper trail." Media attention. Volkov will have a harder time disappearing the boy with journalists asking questions. "If we don't make it out," Kaelyn said quietly, "make sure Noah knows why. Make sure he knows we tried." "He already knows." Victor glanced toward the window where Noah sat. "That kid's been through enough to understand sacrifice. He'll remember." The words should have been comforting. They weren't. Because Kaelyn didn't want Noah to remember her sacrifice. She wanted him to remember her teaching him to ride a bike, to read, to laugh again after his mother's death. But you didn't always get what you wanted. Sometimes you just got to choose how you went down. And Kaelyn was choosing to go down fighting. Fact. The staging area was a storage unit on Chicago's far south side, rented under a fake name and packed with enough weapons to outfit a small army. Victor and his team had been preparing for this, or something like it, for weeks, ever since Dante had disappeared. Dmitri was a wall of muscle with a broken nose and kind eyes. Alexei was wiry and intense, constantly checking his weapons with nervous energy. Marcus moved like a ghost, silent, efficient, his face a mask of concentration. Chen was the tech specialist, already setting up radio equipment and hacking into the plant's ancient security system. "Cameras are from the 90s, Chen muttered, fingers flying over a laptop. "I can loop the feeds for maybe 10 minutes before someone notices. After that, you're visible." 10 minutes is enough, Victor said. He handed Kaelyn a tactical vest. "Put this on. It's not rated for rifle rounds, but it'll stop most pistol calibers." She strapped it on, the weight unfamiliar but grounding. Elena helped her adjust the fit, then handed her a pistol, the same model they'd been training with. 17 rounds, plus 2 spare magazines on the vest. 51 bullets total. Either more than enough or nowhere near sufficient, depending on how the next hour went. "You remember the breathing exercises?" Elena asked quietly. "Yes. Use them. When the shooting starts, your heart rate will spike. Your hands will shake. You'll want to spray bullets everywhere." Elena's voice was calm, professional. "Don't. Breathe, aim, squeeze, move, repeat. Breathe, aim, squeeze, move." "Good." Elena checked her own weapon, then looked at Kaelyn with something that might have been pride. "You've come a long way in 4 days." "Not far enough. Far enough to not die immediately. That's all anyone can ask." Elena pulled her into a brief, fierce hug. "If this goes bad, if we get separated, you get Dante and you run. Don't wait for me. Don't look back. Just run." "Elena, promise me." Kaelyn swallowed hard. "I promise." They loaded into 2 vehicles, Victor's team in the panel van. Kaelyn's team in a nondescript sedan. The drive to the meatpacking plant took 20 minutes through industrial wasteland, abandoned factories, empty lots, streets where the lights had burned out years ago and nobody bothered replacing them. Perfect place to hide a kidnapping victim. Perfect place for a bloodbath. Chen's voice crackled through their earpieces. Cameras looping in 3, 2, 1. You're invisible. 10-minute countdown starts now. Victor's van peeled off toward the loading dock. Kaelyn's sedan continued around the perimeter to the north side, where the fire escape clung to the building like a rusty skeleton. Marcus killed the engine and they sat in darkness for 5 seconds, listening. No sirens, no shouts, just the distant sound of traffic and the wind whistling through broken windows. Move, Elena whispered. They exited the car in silence, weapons up, covering angles. The fire escape's ladder was 15 feet off the ground, old security measure to prevent easy access. Marcus produced a collapsible hook, tossed it up, and they climbed. Kaelyn's hands were slick with sweat inside her gloves. Her heart hammered so hard she thought the guards inside might hear it, but she kept climbing, one hand over the other. Don't look down. Don't think about falling. They reached the roof. Gravel crunched under their feet. Marcus led them to the north edge where the third-floor windows were visible below. Rope, Elena whispered. Elena. They rigged a quick rappel line. Marcus went first, dropping silently to a third-floor ledge. Then Chen. Then Elena. Kaelyn's turn. She gripped the rope, swung her legs over the edge, and descended into the darkness. Her boots hit the ledge beside Elena with a soft thump that sounded deafening in the silence. They were outside a window, grimy glass, impossible to see through. But according to the blueprints, this was the cold storage wing. Somewhere on the other side of that glass, Dante was waiting, if he was still alive. Marcus pulled out a glass cutter, professional grade, the kind that could slice through without shattering. He worked quickly, cutting a circle large enough to reach through and unlock the window. It swung open with a faint creak. They slipped inside one at a time, dropping into what had once been an office. Empty now except for a rusted desk and file cabinets covered in a decade of dust. The air smelled like mold and old meat. Elena checked her watch. 6 minutes. Move. They crossed the office to the door. Marcus opened it a crack, peered into the hallway beyond. 2 guards. Just like Victor's source had said, standing outside a heavy door marked Cold Storage 3, both armed, both alert. Marcus looked at Elena. She nodded. He raised his weapon, a pistol with a suppressor attached, and fired twice in rapid succession. The shots were soft, barely louder than coughs. Both guards dropped. They moved fast, dragging the bodies into a side room before anyone could see. Elena pulled the keys off one guard's belt and unlocked the cold storage door. It swung open with a metallic groan. The room beyond was exactly what it sounded like. A walk-in freezer, long since decommissioned. The cooling equipment was gone, but the insulation remained, making it essentially soundproof from the outside. Perfect for interrogation. Perfect for torture. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting harsh shadows, and chained to a support beam in the center of the room, barely conscious, was Dante Moreau. Kaelyn's breath caught. He'd been beaten. Badly. His face was a mass of bruises, one eye swollen completely shut. His shirt hung in tatters, revealing livid marks across his ribs. Boot prints, probably. His right shoulder sat at an unnatural angle. Dislocated, just like Victor had said. But he was breathing. And when Elena called his name softly, his head lifted. His one good eye focused on them with something like disbelief. "Took you long enough," he rasped. His voice was wrecked, broken, but alive. Kaelyn rushed forward, her hands shaking as she examined the chains. Heavy industrial padlocks. No way to shoot them off without ricocheting bullets everywhere. "Keys," she said. "We need—" Marcus was already checking the guards' bodies. He returned with a ring of keys and started trying them in the locks. Elena knelt beside Dante. "How bad?" "Broken ribs, dislocated shoulder, some internal bleeding, probably." He tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace. "I've had worse." "When?" "Kandahar, 2008. "You're delirious." "Maybe." His eye found Kaelyn. "You came. You actually came." "Of course I came." She was crying and hadn't realized it. "You saved my life. Did you think I'd just—" "Yes." His voice was soft, Most people do. The first lock clicked open, then the second. Dante slumped forward and Elena caught him, keeping him upright. 4 minutes, Chen's voice crackled in their ears. Victor's team is engaged at the loading dock. Heavy resistance. You need to move now. Copy, Elena said. She looked at Marcus. Help me get him up. They hauled Dante to his feet. He bit back a scream as his shoulder shifted, his face going gray with pain. We need to reset that, Elena said. Later, after we're out. Dante took a shaky breath. I can walk, just need a second. He couldn't walk. Not really. He could barely stand. But he leaned on Marcus and Elena and forced one foot in front of the other as they moved toward the door. Kaelyn took point, weapon raised, covering their exit. They made it to the hallway. 10 feet, 20. Then the alarms went off. Piercing, deafening, red lights strobing everywhere. Camera loop just died, Chen's voice said, tight with stress. They know you're here. Multiple hostiles converging on your position from the east stairwell. Gunfire erupted from behind them. Bullets chewed into the wall beside Kaelyn's head. She dropped, spun, and returned fire without thinking. 3 shots. Someone screamed. Go! Elena was shouting. Go! 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 They ran, or tried to. Dante's weight slowed them. Marcus practically carried him while Elena and Kaelyn provided covering fire. The hallway seemed endless. Emergency exit sign glowing ahead but impossibly far. More gunfire from the stairwell. Chen appeared from nowhere, his submachine gun chattering, laying down suppressing fire that gave them precious seconds. They hit the emergency exit. Kaelyn slammed the door open and they tumbled through onto an exterior stairwell, 3 floors down. They descended as fast as Dante's injuries allowed, boots ringing on metal. Below, she could see the sedan waiting, 50 feet, 40. Then figures appeared in the lot, 4 men, weapons raised. Volkov's people had circled around. Contact front, Marcus called. Kaelyn fired, so did Elena, so did Chen. The suppressing fire forced the men into cover behind a dumpster, but they were returning fire. Bullets sparking off the metal stairs. 20 feet from the ground, Dante's legs gave out. He collapsed, nearly taking Marcus down with him. Leave me, Dante gasped. Get out. I'm too slow. Shut up, Kaelyn snarled. She grabbed his other arm, helping Marcus haul him up. We're not leaving you. 10 feet, 5. They hit the ground and ran for the sedan, bullets chasing them across the pavement. Chen went down, caught one in the leg. He fell hard but kept firing from the ground, his weapon trained on the dumpster. Elena circled back, grabbed him, started dragging him toward the car. Kaelyn and Marcus got Dante into the back seat. She climbed in after him, her weapon trained on the plant's exit. Elena threw Chen into the passenger seat and gunned the engine. They tore out of the lot, tires screaming, bullets punching through the rear window. Victor, Elena was shouting into her radio. We're out. Status. Static. Then Victor's voice strained. Pinned down at the loading dock. Can't break contact. Get clear. We'll find our own way. The transmission cut off. Elena cursed in Hebrew and drove faster. Behind them, the meatpacking plant receded into the distance, smoke rising from the loading dock area where Victor's team was fighting for their lives. In the back seat, Dante was barely conscious, his breathing shallow and rapid, shock setting in. Kaelyn pressed her hands against his ribs, trying to slow the bleeding from a wound she hadn't noticed before. A knife wound, maybe, or a bullet graze. Blood soaked through her gloves. Stay with me, she said. Dante, stay with me. We're out. We made it. You just need to... His eye fluttered open. Found hers. Noah, he whispered. Where's... Safe. He's safe. At the cabin with the security team. She was crying again. You saved us. Again. You absolute idiot. You saved us. Worth it. His hand found hers, squeezed weakly. You're... worth it. Then his eye rolled back and he went limp. No. Kaelyn shook him. No, don't. Elena, he's not breathing. Hospital, Elena snapped. Northwestern, 15 minutes. Just keep pressure on that wound. Keep him stable. Kaelyn pressed harder, her hands slick with blood. Beside her, Chen was also in bad shape, his leg bleeding heavily. They'd gotten Dante out, but the cost was mounting. And somewhere behind them, Victor and his team were still fighting. Still dying, maybe. All for a man who'd spent his life protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. All for someone who'd mattered. The sedan screamed through Chicago's empty streets, running red lights, narrowly missing other cars. Kaelyn held Dante's limp body and prayed to forces she didn't believe in that he'd survive this. That after everything, after all the violence and sacrifice and impossible choices, he'd get to wake up and see that the people he'd saved had saved him back. That love could be repaid. That nobody had to die alone in the dark. The hospital appeared ahead. Bright lights, ambulances, the chaotic safety of a trauma center. Elena pulled directly to the emergency entrance, barely stopping before throwing the doors open. "Help!" she was screaming. "Epan, we need help! Gunshot wounds, multiple casualties!" Staff appeared with gurneys. Kaelyn was pushed aside as they loaded Dante, their professional hands taking over where hers had failed. She watched them wheel him away through automatic doors that closed in her face. And standing in the ambulance bay, covered in blood that wasn't hers, she realized the fight wasn't over. Volkov was still out there. The inheritance was still in play. And the man she'd just risked everything to save was still dying behind closed doors. The rescue was complete, but the war had just begun. Elena's phone buzzed. She answered, listened, then closed her eyes. "Victor?" Kaelyn asked. "Dead. Him and Dmitri. Alexei made it out, but..." Elena's voice broke. "Half our team is gone." The words settled like ash. They'd gotten Dante out, but the price was 3 good men dead and Chen possibly crippled. Was it worth it? Kaelyn looked at the emergency room doors where Dante had disappeared. Yes, even with the cost. Even with everything it had taken, because that's what you did for people who mattered. You paid the price, and you hoped it was enough. A doctor appeared, scrubs already blood-stained. "Who came in with Dante Moreau?" "Me," Kaelyn said. "You family?" She hesitated, then, "Yes." The lie came easily now. "Come with me," the doctor said. "There are decisions that need to be made." Kaelyn followed him through the doors, Elena beside her, both of them bracing for whatever came next. Behind them, the night bled into dawn. And in a warehouse across the city, Alexei Volkov received word that his prisoner had escaped. His face remained calm. His voice, when he spoke, was ice. "Find them. All of them. The woman. The child. And bring me Moreau's head." The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time there would be no mercy, no prisoners, no second chances, just blood. And the settling of accounts that had been building for too long. Kaelyn stood in the hospital corridor waiting for news and felt the weight of what she'd started, what she'd have to finish, one way or another, to the death. Hers or Volkov's. There was no middle ground anymore. The point of no return had passed. Now there was only forward, into the fire, and whatever waited on the other side. The surgeon's hands were steady, but his eyes told a different story. Exhaustion, concern, the weight of a life balanced on the edge of a scalpel. "He's stable," the doctor said. "For now, but the internal bleeding was worse than we thought. We had to remove his spleen, reset the shoulder, pin 3 ribs. He's lost a lot of blood." Kaelyn gripped the wall for support. "Will he live? If infection doesn't set in, if his body can handle the trauma, if..." The doctor stopped himself. "He's strong. That gives him a chance. But the next 48 hours will tell us everything." "Can I see him?" "ICU, room 12. But he's sedated. He won't know you're there." "I'll know," Kaelyn said. She found the room 10 minutes later after scrubbing the blood off her hands in a bathroom sink and watching the pink water spiral down the drain. Evidence of violence disappearing like it had never happened. But her clothes were still stained, her vest still pressed against bruised ribs. And somewhere 3 men were dead because she'd asked them to help save someone they barely knew. The ICU was quiet. Machines beeped soft rhythms. Nurses moved like ghosts between rooms. Dante lay in the bed with tubes running into his arms and monitors tracking every heartbeat. His face was still swollen, one eye purple and sealed shut, but his chest rose and fell, steady, alive. Kaelyn sank into the chair beside the bed and took his hand. It was warm. Real. Not the corpse she'd feared finding in that meatpacking plant. "You scared me," she whispered. "You absolute bastard, you scared me." The monitors kept their steady rhythm. Proof of life. Proof of survival. Noah's safe, she continued, her voice rough. Elena has him at a new location, somewhere Volkov won't find. And Hoffman, the lawyer, he's making noise. Filing papers. Getting the DNA confirmed. By next week, the whole world will know Noah's James Whitmore's grandson. Volkov won't be able to touch him without every journalist in America asking questions. Dante's fingers twitched. Maybe a reflex. Maybe something more. Victor's dead, Kaelyn said quietly. Dmitri too. Chen might lose his leg. And it's my fault. I asked them to come. I asked them to risk everything for... Her voice broke. For you. Because you mattered. Because walking away and leaving you to die wasn't something I could live with. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his hand. So you better wake up. You better survive this. Because I didn't watch good people die just so you could give up in a hospital bed. The machines beeped. His chest rose and fell. No other response. Kaelyn stayed there for an hour. Then 2. Until Elena appeared in the doorway, her expression tight. We have a problem. Of course they did. There was always another problem. What now? Kaelyn asked. Volkov knows Dante's here. He has people watching the hospital. We need to move him, tonight. He can't be moved. The doctor said, the doctor doesn't understand what Volkov will do if he gets his hands on Dante again. Elena's voice was hard. We have maybe 6 hours before he tries something. An assault team, a fire, something to create chaos and extract Dante in the confusion. Then we defend this room. Against what? A dozen armed men? In a hospital full of civilians? Elena shook her head. We have to move him. There's a private facility 40 miles north. Secure. Off the books. They'll take him. Kaelyn looked at Dante's unconscious form. Moving him could kill him. Staying could definitely kill him. No good choices. Just variations of terrible. How do we do it without Volkov's people seeing? She asked. Ambulance, back entrance. Chen's already arranging it. Elena checked her watch. We have 3 hours to prep. After that, we're out of time. 3 hours. Kaelyn stood, her legs unsteady. Then let's get started. A sec. They moved Dante at 2 in the morning when the hospital was at its quietest. A private ambulance, one of Dante's own, requisitioned from a legitimate medical transport company he apparently owned, backed up to the service entrance. The EMTs were Victor's people, loyal, trusted, or at least Kaelyn hoped they were trusted. After everything, paranoia had become her default setting. They transferred Dante with agonizing care, monitoring his vitals, adjusting the IV lines. He never woke, never stirred. Just a body on a gurney being wheeled through fluorescent hallways while Kaelyn walked beside him, one hand on his arm, anchoring herself to the proof he was still alive. Elena rode in the ambulance. Kaelyn followed in the sedan with Chen, his leg in a cast, his face gray with pain, but his weapon loaded and ready. You think Volkov's people are following? Kaelyn asked as they pulled out of the parking lot. Absolutely. Chen's eyes never left the mirrors. But they won't try anything on the highway. Too visible. They'll wait until we arrive. Try to hit us during the transfer. Then we'll be ready. Chen glanced at her. You've changed. Had to. Dante would be... He paused, searching for words. Impressed. Maybe worried, but impressed. He'd tell me I was being reckless. Definitely. But he's reckless too. That's why they work together. Chen winced as they hit a pothole. The people he saves. The people who save him back. It's a circle. Keeps turning. The private facility was exactly what Elena had promised. A converted estate hidden behind tall walls and ancient oak trees. The kind of place rich people went to recover from surgeries they didn't want public. Discreet. Expensive. And according to Elena, completely loyal to Dante. They pulled up to the gate at 3:15 a.m. A guard checked IDs, made a phone call, then waved them through. The ambulance was already parked. They were transferring Dante into the building, a converted mansion with medical equipment in rooms that had once held dinner parties and ballroom dances. Kaelyn followed the gurney inside, through hallways lined with expensive art and state-of-the-art monitors. A doctor met them, older woman, 60 maybe, with sharp eyes and steady hands. Dante Moreau, she said, reading his chart. I've treated him before. Gunshot wound, wasn't it? 4 years ago? Knife, Elena corrected. 6 years. Right. The doctor, her name tag read Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to their wounded teammate, started examining Dante with professional efficiency. Internal bleeding is controlled, but he's not out of danger. The next 72 hours are critical. Will he wake up? Kaelyn asked. Eventually, when his body's ready. Dr. Chen looked at her. You're the one who pulled him out? We all did. Then you saved his life. What he does with it afterward is up to him. She gestured to the nurses. Get him settled in room 4, full monitoring. I want vitals every 15 minutes. They wheeled Dante away. Kaelyn wanted to follow, but Elena caught her arm. We need to talk, Elena said, about what happens next. They ended up in a sitting room that probably cost more than Kaelyn's entire life. Leather furniture, original paintings, a view of the grounds through bulletproof windows. Chen limped in behind them, collapsing into a chair with a grunt of pain. Volkov's not going to stop, Elena said without preamble. Dante's alive. You're alive. Noah's about to become one of the richest children in America. Every single piece of Volkov's plan has fallen apart. Good, Kaelyn said. No, not good. Desperate men do desperate things. Elena pulled out her phone, showing surveillance photos. This is Volkov's compound, north side. Warehouse converted into a fortress. 20 men, heavy weapons. He's preparing for war. Let him prepare. We have Dante back. We have Noah safe. We can disappear. Take the money when it clears and... And what? Run forever? Chen's voice was harsh. Volkov has resources, connections. He'll find you. Maybe not this month, maybe not this year, but eventually. Then what do you suggest? Kaelyn demanded. We can't attack him. We don't have the people. Victor's dead. Half our team is... We negotiate, Elena said quietly. The word hung in the air like poison. Negotiate what? Kaelyn asked. He wants Noah. I'm not giving him Noah. We don't give him Noah. We give him something else. Elena's expression was grim. Information, leverage, proof that Dante wasn't the one who killed Volkov's brother 8 years ago. Kaelyn's blood went cold. What? The woman in the alley, the one Dante didn't save. She wasn't just random. She was Volkov's sister-in-law, married to Alexei's younger brother Victor, no relation to our Victor. Elena pulled out old newspaper clippings, faded and yellow. Victor Volkov died in a car accident 6 months after his wife was beaten to death. But it wasn't an accident, it was Dante, eliminating the man who'd killed a woman he felt guilty for not saving. Jesus Christ. Alexei has been hunting Dante for years, quietly, carefully, building his organization, waiting for the right moment. Elena met